everybody? Welcome to Call to Action Live this Saturday night. I am super excited to talk about some things that happened yesterday. I mean, I feel like it was kind of a big deal. A lot of people were pretty excited and opinionated about it. I might be wrong, though, but to verify that information with me, I have some pretty awesome people on my show tonight, starting with one of my favorite co-hosts of all time, Tumor. BLD, how are you doing?
Doing great. Look at that. We're both dungeoned up. That's what it is. The merchandise is out. We're ready to go. Obviously, action is our thing. But, Kevin Spencer is also part of the Action Army. So it made sense when Ben went there. We're all going to go action. Action's going to be the Action Dungeon now. We love the dungeon. Wow. What the hell happened yesterday? That's all I got to say. It was like I'll call it the Adam Collins effect. But we went heavy on rookies. And I'm interested to break this down.
Same. And down below is another one of my favorite hosts of all time. Super excited I get to hang out with him more than I have pretty recently. It's been really fun. Billy, how are you?
I am great. I'm exhausted from yesterday. What a crazy night it was. It's almost like I feel like it's a dream. I woke up from a dream saying, what the hell just happened? Is that real life or But yeah, some things we expected, some things we didn't expect, and some things we had no idea even possible. So what a wild and crazy night it was, but I'm happy to be here to break it down with you two. Well, with Kelsey, at least. Paul's is here too.
That's okay.
Paul's
Got John right now. Yeah. That's good. John, yeah, well.
I have a correction shirt too.
I love you. You can come check on us tomorrow. I don't know if I won't wear it tomorrow when we talk to Shannon. And yes, I know, Mike. Thanks. Appreciate you pointing that out. Well, if we had the action faction, that'd be a different story. Let me tell you, that's what I'm eventually waiting for down the line. But hey, we'll get there, right? So, well.
We knew it was going to be a Star Wars heavy night because that was what everybody was excited to see, and I'm happy that tonight we get to talk to the crown jewel maybe of the Star Wars draft.
The first player,
the one that we knew
taken. The first Star Wars player taken in the draft, and actually since he's Alex Damon who's kept, he is the second overall ranked Star Wars player according if you want to use that as as how it goes, because that's what happened last night, right?
Yes, it's very, very cool. Super excited.
Well, at the time of the draft, he was the third or the first Star Wars player drafted. Retroactive, we found out apparently there was another Star Wars player that was drafted before him, but we didn't know it at the time.
True. Very true indeed. So
that is true.
But without further ado, why don't you bring him on then? Because we might as well talk to him, get his thoughts on the craziness that was as a newcomer to the experience, a new player in the draft. We had him on a week or two ago. I've lost track of time. We had a lot of rookie specials. I'm not sure when we had him on. It was a couple weeks ago, I think. Yeah. Either way, psyched to have him back on. He was a great time. It was great to talk to him. He reached out, and we're going to have him right now. Let's bring him on. Thomas Harper, the newest member of the Den. Thomas, it's good to see you, my friend. How are you?
It's good to see. Billy hit the nail on the head as far as how I'm feeling. Very little sleep. I'm still trying to process what happened, but happy where I landed. Extremely happy with the faction that I'm surrounded with and ready to get to business.
First off, I do have to ask, you did say something off air I want to bring up. Do you have another beer? Are you
I do. I'm watching. So right before this, I committed the cardinal sin of knocking a beer right off my table. I'm already in my basement, so it doesn't smell great. Now it has an air of beer to it, which is nice. So I'm waiting for the head to go down on that beer, what's left of it. And fortunately, I brought a brother in arms. So we're okay.
Oh, be prepared.
I'm not happy. I got beer on a Darth Vader helmet that's below me, but so we're not happy about that. But it'll be okay. I will
say that kind of sounds like you'd be more fit for a dungeon basement smelling like beer, but that's okay.
I feel like I'm in enemy territory based on the clothing alone.
Well, we're new to that. That's okay. We're a nice enemy, so. We do have one of your compatriots in the chat, Lacey. Well, that's not Lacey, that's Jake. There's Lacey in there. Good to see you as well, Lacey. Happy to have you in the chat.
Partners in crime.
That's right. Another two of the Den players. The two main Star Wars Den players. Who knows? At this point, you never know who's going to join the Star Wars League, as we learned that some things can just happen out of nowhere. But we'll break that down as well. My first question to you now, Thomas, is did you know you were getting drafted in the first round? I got to feel like the first rounders knew. But how did you break that? How did you find out that you were ready to go to the Den?
No, I absolutely not. I've been open about this, and I don't think Kate would care. She didn't reach out to me before the draft. So whatever her process and the existing free agents process was to evaluate talent and who they might be drafting, they did that on their own, and they landed on me. I'm very fortunate in that regard. But we didn't talk. So I had no clue that she was looking at me, potentially targeting me. And I looked at the draft as far as the first 8 picks and tried to have the mentality of who I would take as a manager based, and obviously I don't know everybody and particularly my knowledge of the singles players is probably the weakest compared to Star Wars and IG. But I had a sort of an idea of how I thought things would go. In fact, I had my list, my mock draft, if you will, up beside me as this whole thing was going on. And my wife was like, "What is that?" And I was like, "Well, it's about to be the 100% correct prediction." It ended up being like 0% correct because that was insane. So I had no idea. I'm, just very humbled, but also very motivated by the pick because at the position I was drafted at relative to other Star Wars players, there's nothing but expectations that are heaped on. There's nowhere that you can go except for success or failure in the eyes of, either fans or, Kate for that matter, having used that pick on me. So, that's a big fire underneath me.
Wow. So I gotta say, you gotta put pressure on yourself. Is a championship the only measure of success at this point? Like, if you don't win the championship this year, it's just not a success.
No, and I think anybody that thinks that is underestimating Alex and his talent because he's just phenomenally talented. We're talking Star Wars trivia in general. I mean, it is what he does as his regular day job, if you will. He got that day job. He shifted his entire life around, as did Molly, in the context of getting better at Star Wars trivia. So, you'd be a fool to count him out of anything. As this season is war, right? And if there's one maxim that's correct in war at any given time, it's that the enemy always has a say in things. You don't get to control how the battle goes all yourself. So that's the mentality that I bring into it. And quite frankly, if I get to face Alex by virtue of my own skill, I don't want to be handed any sort of match. I haven't earned that. If anybody deserves a shot beyond Dimalanta and either Kelly or Molly, that's going to be Ace. He had a phenomenal run and earned a spot at whatever time that comes up. And, I haven't done anything in this league. And so Alex is somebody that I see every single year. So I have a good internal record of what I view as success against Alex. So for me, he's a 300-meter target at best. That belt and the chance to win it either from him or from whoever else is way off in the distance. For me, it's chopping the wood that's right in front of you. It's that 50-meter target. If I'm like bringing it back to war and like the rifle range and all of those things, I'm focused on whoever that first match is going to be. And quite frankly, it's as much me playing against the game and the question writers as it is against whoever the opponent is, because I'm new to the Schmoedown. I'm not dumb to that fact. And, that's going to be as big an opponent as the person sitting on the other side of the screen, or for in person at that time, the person sitting next to me.
Paul, you muted.
Well said.
I'm muted. Sorry, I did that because I heard somebody talking. My bad. We're completely professional here. Now, you didn't get to talk to Kate beforehand. Have you talked to Kate or your fellow any of your fellow teammates by now?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we've already started the process. My mentality was the draft is like the fun part, right? I have no control in that, especially as a rookie. people either like me or they don't. They value me however they're going to value me based on whatever factors they believe are important. And beyond that, it's out of my control. I can't do anything leading up to that other than, get the chance on shows like yours to answer some great questions and sort of illustrate my personality to control that process. But now the work starts. The fun's over. A different sort of fun, at least as far as I consider it, begins. And that's the business of getting into fighting shape and getting ready whenever that first match comes. And, my mentality is that Kate has reached out to me, and I think she would be okay if I said this too. Her first her first comment to me was like, "How are those arms? Are they ready to hoist that belt?" So she's bringing a killer mentality into this. I think that's clear by the draft pick and this faction that she put together. She's not out to play games this season. I mean, it is war, and she seems to have taken that very literally in compiling this roster, in the trade that she executed, and how she used those picks. So I've got to do her justice on that front.
It's funny because last year, I don't know if you've seen the draft from last year at all, but Kate had she was doing a bit where she had an accent, and it was kind of fun and jovial. And then this draft, it's almost like picking you set the tone. This is all business. We're in the business of winning. And that, and from there, it was just the whole draft kind of laid out. Right. I was very excited.
Yeah, Billy, you make a good point. And what my wife pointed out to me, which I hope other people noticed as the other round, as we got into the other rounds, she was surgical. There was no dilly-dallying. That she was hilarious as she always is. But Kate knew exactly where she was going. If her strategy, her preferred pick had been disrupted at any point, you didn't know that. Because she came right in. We weren't burning the clock down. Those 90 seconds weren't burned down to the wire. She was right in there. You got your little token joke, and then she was right to business. So I have to respect that.
Yeah, actually, I would agree with you entirely on that. That's one of the things I noticed about the new no-nonsense Kate, even though she did throw a jab at every once in a while. She kind of just came in, boom, was back out. She usually, last year, she would have been more pontificating, would have been more of a fun level here. We're gonna make some jokes and have some fun. And this was I'm in. Screw you. This guy's coming home, and we're ready to go.
I have to believe. I haven't talked to her about this, but I have to believe that the last week in between free agency and last night, and all the talk, all the ink that was spilled on the internet over picking apart this trade that she made, and at least from what I saw, the majority of the comments seem to be really negative towards Kate's move. How could you give up Marisol for 2 picks? This is ridiculous. People obviously didn't want to play for you, Kate. That's why you have the roster that you have going into the draft. I think she walked in with a chip on her shoulder. I think she walked in with a clear plan. That much is obvious. She was not reeling and picking people that even Christian had to look up on his roster to make sure that they were real. But she had a first, second, and third contingency so that she was comfortable with however the draft kind of snaked and shifted. And I think she went in with a little bit of fire lit beneath her based on all that negativity. I don't think she's one to sit there and read comments, but I guarantee you that she was aware of that discussion on some level.
Well, I mean, talking about that trade. So at the end of the free agency period, she has basically two singles players who can be a team, and that's it. So she trades away a singles and teams player, and in return, she picks you first. So that's your Star Wars player, done and dusted. And then you get Alonzo Duralde, another historically great teams player, and then you get Saul, who's an IG player. So now you've shored up everything in the first round, start of the second round. You have your whole a lineup there. Intergeekdom Star Wars teams singles.
Yeah, the way that this could have gone south was, and I read this in some of the people that were predicting what she might do. Is she going to burn one of those 3 or 2 of those 3 picks, trying to snap up talent that she doesn't necessarily need to try to orchestrate second and third trades for other draft picks or other players and just hope and pray that it all works out. And it's clear that that wasn't the case. She was going to snap up the absolute best value there. I think that's reflected in those 2 picks. And I think we've got some real heavy hitters on this team, top to bottom.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. Also, that's another thing that happened. To have some strong ladies come into the league, that's for sure. It's interesting. I think we're going to break down after as we get this. We're going to break down the entire draft round by round as we get into it. But I will touch base on the trade as well. It's amazing that she kind of came in with, you said, like a lot to prove, a chip on her shoulder, because she did make that trade. She had to have a great draft, and I think at the end of the day, most of the pundits are coming out saying she did a good job. She did a good job. She did what she had to do to kind of make that trade worth her while. So that's all you can ask for, I think, at this point. So I'm excited about to see where the den goes. But unless you guys have anything further specifically for Thomas, maybe we can all start breaking down the draft and as it went down. I know Thomas has some points to be made, especially about the Star Wars division, because nothing went the way any of us thought at all. Luke Skywalker.
To put it mildly.
I was having a Han Solo Force Awakens moment. Like, this is not the way I thought this day was going to go.
Exactly. It's so. I guess that's why predictions are made, and predictions are made to be broken, I guess. But let's just start right away with round 1, right, Kelsey? Want to go right into it?
Yeah, let's start with round 1. I will just read each pick, and then we can discuss what stood out in that round. Pick 1, The Dungeon, Mara Knopic for Inner Geekdom in Star Wars. Usual Suspects, Amaru Moses, Inner Geekdom. The Den, Thomas Harper, Star Wars. The Quirky Mercs, Andrew Dimalanta, Star Wars. Finstock Exchange, Griffin Newman, says NA on the list, so I'm not sure what division. The Stars, Brandon Hanna. I have opinions. Singles, teams, and IG. Swag, Eric Zipper, singles, teams, and IG. And then the Den, Alonzo Duralde, and singles and teams.
Yeah. Let's start right with the first pick. Okay, so the Dungeon went ahead and picked Mara Knopic, the amazing Mara Knopic. Now, that was kind of like I feel beforehand. It was either we're going to take a Star Wars player, we're going to take Mara Knopic as the top IG player that they wanted. To me, this made the most perfect sense. I predicted this is the way it was going to go down because I almost had a feeling that when Mara didn't sign with anybody in the free agency period, there's a person IG, like she's an IG heavyweight, has a title shot right away with the new point system. That's big. So to have her not be signed to free agency, I almost feel like this was a package deal with the Dungeon. I think the Dungeon gets Dan Murrell, and then part of that signing was we'll also take Mara with the first pick. So you get Dan and Mara together, making the Dungeon a great foursome to start with. You have Robert Parker, Dan Murrell, Ben Bateman, and Mara Knopic. And let's talk about it now. Well, I mean, we'll talk about this now. After she made that announcement that she is entering the Star Wars division, so right away. With that being said, you have all four divisions are technically covered, and you're not even out. You're out of the first pick. After the first pick of the draft, you're covered with all 4 bases. What were your guys' thoughts on that at all?
I mean, you have 2 former singles champions who we assume is going to make a great team, so that covers your teams. You have Robert Parker, who, despite the stumbles of last year, is still an elite Inner Geekdom player. And then you have Mara, who has an Inner Geekdom title shot. And that when she was just an Inner Geekdom player, I'd say just an Inner Geekdom player, but it's like a B+ because as the first pick, because she does have the title shot, but it's still like is that the best option as the first pick overall? But when she's Inner Geekdom and Star Wars, that puts even more value into the pick. So that's what really makes that pick amazing. Plus, she fits in, obviously, with Dan Murrell. I mean, no problems there. Robert Parker, Ben Bateman, they all get along. So there's no, like, the chemistry's already there. It's makes sense.
A no-brainer. Real quick. Another Den, maybe. Got all the Den in the chat. And there's even though we're the Dungeon gear, we still love Den.
We still love the Den.
We bring numbers. This is a Den podcast.
You're trying to make it into it. I get it.
Gotta order another hoodie.
Thomas, what did you think about Mara entering the Star Wars division? How did that strike you?
Look, I'm with you guys in the sense that I wasn't surprised given their free agency. I have to believe that the chess pieces were such that it's not just a free and clear signing of a guy like Dan to bring him away from Finstock. There's got to be a package deal. And, part of the reason I think he went with the Dungeon is because Kaiser had the first pick. Effectively, it's a fourth free agency signing that you can guarantee. And, I talked to Kaiser. He's open about that. I think they talked to a number of people, some of whom may have had a more concrete idea or concrete thought that they were going to end up with the Dungeon in that first pick than I did. But he also had to know that she was going to do Star Wars. That was not something that was decided last night. And so I think probably from his standpoint, from a guy like Bateman's standpoint, they're that much sure with that pick, knowing her skill, knowing that she's going to be a dual threat, and knowing that she's going to have the not that she needs it, but the tutelage and assistance of both Bateman and Merle. And so, I do question with where Star Wars has gotten. IG at this point, I'm trying to think when she last had a match, but IG has, that pool has expanded. And there are some like lore heavy movies that are in there now that are going to require work. It just is. I look at the IG pool and a guy like Robert Park, and I watch him compete. I watch Damon compete, and I'm like, right over my head. Good luck if I ever dive in there. I will get crushed. But no, but then I watch a Star Wars match, and I know personally from my last 6 years of prepping every single year for this level of fight, and that's a lot of work. I mean, that's Star Wars alone is like a schedule clearing event to really drill down and learn the things that you need to learn. I'll give you a great example. There's been a question asked repeatedly: what is the command ship that Anakin Skywalker destroys in The Phantom Menace? It's on Wikipedia right now, but that answer changed 3 years ago by virtue of a single Vehicles and Starships book authored by Pablo Hidalgo. For the longest time, it was called the SACAC, and that was just this ship. If you watch the ship, the model, it actually changes. So there's like more antennas on the command ship that gets blown up. Pablo Hidalgo said it didn't make sense that visually it's the same ship. So I just created a new name for the command ship. Like, you've got to know that stuff. If you don't know that, you're going to get TKO'd. Yeah. If you don't know that stuff, I'm going to KO you. That is what it is. And so I have no doubt that she's going to come out swinging in this division. I just wonder that I question whether I would have the ability to balance both of those. Alex clearly does, but I don't see really any other people effectively battling in both. I mean, I think Sean is probably in that category. I would put, but like, I have a hell of a lot of respect for those folks, because that's two gargantuan levels of knowledge that you have to just be competitive to make it out of the first round of a tournament. So more power to her, but I think that was a big factor.
I will say, like you said, we don't know when the decision was made. So this decision could have been made, last year, that she was going to be in Star Wars, and she's maybe already started to put in that prep time. And her background is she's a nuke from the Navy. So studying and absorbing knowledge that's what it is that you have to be able to do in that field. So you're basically a genius if you're in that field. So I would not question her ability to do that.
And I told Kaiser this on Twitter last night. I called him out for his little movie poster that he released. And I said, if you're going to release this cool looking thing, at least put US made fighter jets on your thing. Don't put these old, not just a Russian or a Soviet jet, but a decrepit old fight, an F-4 Phantom wouldn't have a very outdated U.S. fighter from the Vietnam War would not have a problem taking out the aircraft that he has on his poster, much less an F-22 Raptor. And I told him, I was like, look, you bring whatever you're going to bring, but the Den is bringing U.S. made equipment to this fight. And so anyhow.
Oh, that's funny.
Wow.
Fair,
The equipment was in
fair.
the dungeon for a while times. They had to brush it off and everything. Maybe that's what it is.
Some old Buffalo fighters from pre-World War II.
Those fighters were new off the line in like 67. So I wasn't even like a thought in the air at that point, much less anything else. So by the time I was born, those fighters were already outdated. So, but no, I will say interbranch rivalry. She's Navy. Kate has gone with the superior military branch, with me being Army, and recent Army Navy football games and the record there bear that out. But that's an aspect of our potential rivalry that she and I can have when the time comes.
I love it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I do too.
The Army. What a joke.
Well, let's go on then. You want to go into the usual suspects then? Picking. This was actually kind of it's another big surprise in the first round. Amaru Moses, one of the Fan League 4. Now, they were pumped up for a while, but I feel like it was a big surprise to me that here we are, the second overall pick in the draft is a rookie IG player. I almost didn't even know how to react to that.
Yeah, I was interested in that one. Getting to interview him and getting to learn more about his playing and things like that. I do understand why he was drafted a little bit higher up. I figured that of the rookies, especially from the Fan League, he might be one of the first ones picked, just from things I've seen people say on Twitter and things like that. But the first in the first round, I was pretty surprised. I feel like that really kind of helped set up the vibe of the rest of the whole draft. Is like, oh, this is where we're going with this.
I almost wonder if, real quick, because we built up all these rookies on the after shows and stuff. There's a lot of full court press introducing all these people, and I wonder. It seems like the managers bought into that a lot, bought into the whole idea more, almost to the point of maybe even too much to a degree. In fact, they forgot some of the veterans who had been here for a while. But again, we're going to find out whether they were proven right or not. But I almost want to say this was a little bit of a reach to do it so soon. But at the same time, the way the rest of the draft went, maybe it wasn't, because somebody else would have taken them if usual suspects had them.
Well, here's
I will say this. I look at Corruption's draft, and I have a lot of respect for who they picked. But when a guy like Sean falls to where he fell in the draft, I think like round 7, that says a lot about where value is being placed in this and that. And I think I watched Amaru, Jacoby, and Jacob Blunden. I think that those three stood out to me just as even though not all three are non-Star Wars players, the way they carried themselves. I watched Amaru, and I think Jacoby was in on it too. They did a very public mock game with Bateman, and it was more singles focused than IG or anything. And they held their own. I was sitting there I don't know the answer to any of these things. And I was very impressed. And so, I look at players like that, and managers did their homework. A guy like Jacob Blunden to get picked up all the way in the 8th round, I think is a steal. I wish we had an earlier pick to be able to snag somebody like that. But I was blown away across the board. I sat there and from round 1 on, my draft board was just completely blown to pieces.
Right. Mine too.
So the usual suspects, they're after free agency, they're clearly set up in singles and teams kind of, but they don't have anything IG or Star Wars. And I understand picking IG here because there's definitely value in Star Wars clearly throughout this whole draft, because you could get, John Hoey from Star Wars Newsnet went at the 7th round or the 6th round or something like that. So there's clearly value everywhere. I don't understand picking him here when there's other IG players on the board. Also, of the Fan League 4, all of them kept saying that Jacoby Bancroft was the best player of the 4 of them. So, it kind of boggled my mind here a little bit.
I think you said it best. It's the IG aspect. They need to get an IG player specifically for it, and he made a lot of noise. I don't know. Maybe I think Thomas. I'm sorry, Tom. I think that Sam might have initially meant to pick Mara. I think that might have been his goal to pick Mara, and then like when Mara was taken off the board, I was like, okay, I got to go with this other guy. I'm going to make my splash, make it take a chance. And I'm going to find out very soon whether or not it was a good chance or not. But it definitely did set the tone right. Now, moving forward, we already discussed Thomas Harper at that point. We brought that up. I think it was a bold choice by Kate. I actually I loved this choice, not just because you're on screen here with me. I thought that was
You tell me how you really feel.
I will.
We were on a Zoom call. Everyone was very excited.
We're all like, wow. Oh, I gotta admit, I was kind of hoping the dungeon was going to get you. I know there was rumblings at one point. I don't know how much this went out, but I know there was some rumblings that the Kaiser was considering trying to get another higher draft pick to take you. I know that you said you spoke to Kaiser at some point, so I mean that was definitely a possibility.
Yeah, I mean Bateman said it openly on his stereo show that they had a very definite trade. Now this is not something that they discussed with me. I knew that they were not going to pick me with number one. I didn't know who they were going to pick with the number one spot, but he and Ben were candid enough and honest enough with me to say, look, like if you happen to slip or we think we can make a move, we're going to look at you. And I was humbled just by that. But I can't fault them for the pick that they made at all. I mean, it would have been her or Dimalanta if I'm in his shoes.
Right. So, Dead started strong. That's all I say. Dead started strong, doing what they needed to do. They had Preston and Goddard. They had singles. They already had their team. Goddard's and IG already. Fill out again after almost a free agency signing for them. They had all four divisions covered, so you can't knock that at that point. Solid competitors in all four divisions, rather, I should say. So let's move on then to the Quirky Mercs, taking Andrew Dimalanta. I'm going to interested to see how he reacts as a Merc. He seems to be too serious as a Merc.
That was my take, too. I mean, he's an amazing player. He's going to do well wherever he's at. But personality-wise, he has been very, very more serious as a character, and the Quirky Mercs are very quirky. So I am super interested in if they're going to keep him kind of playing the way he is, or if they're going to have a little bit of a character revamp so he's a little bit more in the quirky vibe. I'm interested to see what happens.
I do think if you watch Beyond the Schmoedown podcast, he fits perfectly in the Quirky Mercs because that's what that podcast is all about, is quirkiness. I mean, he's married to Nikki Dimalanta for heaven's sake, who is the quirkiest person I know. So I mean,
I'll give you. Nikki's well.
Maybe he needs to be a little more quirky, a little more let's have fun, and it'll relax him a little bit in the matches. Like I feel like
he was very serious to the point of like almost being too into it. I think kind of maybe he needs to settle down. Maybe that'll help him out. I don't know, Thomas. You saw him play a few times, right? So, what are your thoughts on Dimalanta?
I think he's at the right team to help him manage what I'm sure is some amount of anger and resentment right now, because I remember in the wake of the tournament and whatnot, and some of the interviews he gave on other shows and his own show, that he rightfully so has a chip on his shoulder. Like, hey, I've got this record. Here's my track record that's proven in this league. And yet you still don't talk about me in the same breath as an Alex Damon or, some of the other heavy hitters in the division. And I get that. And to go where he went, quite frankly, he probably saw me get picked and probably has some amount of resentment. I mean, he talked about the DragonCon players in general and just said, I don't know you guys from Adam, but you're coming into our house. The DragonCon is not Schmoedown, and that's a very fair point. But he's probably got some that poured some kerosene on the fire. So to go to a team like the Quirky Mercs, where they can sort of help him contain and channel that in maybe a positive way, I think it's a good fit, maybe a much better fit than say Finstock or some other team that might just say, hey, like set that loose on somebody unrestrained.
Right. That's a good point.
Very true.
I think another thing compared to last year for him, he joins the Finstock Exchange last year, which was a team full of champions, and the expectations were super high that he was going to just go win that title. So now it's a little different. The expectations are down. He's almost like under the radar, even though he's the 4th overall pick and the 2nd Star Wars player drafted. He's still kind of under the radar. There's all these other flashy players out there that people are talking about. He can just go out and win, and then who cares?
He's got right out of the gate. He's got a title shot. I mean, for the Quirky Mercs alone, his point or his possible points are just, huge for them. They could leap out into a faction lead. He could topple one of the greatest players that the Star Wars division, if not the greatest player that the division has ever seen, by March. And the conversation will be totally turned around. All this talk about draft picks and how teams shaped up is irrelevant at that point if he's hoisted the belt over his head and left Alex in his wake. So I have respect for that.
All right.
For sure.
So you mentioned the exchange, and here we are. The exchange made quite a splash on several different levels, I think. Turned some heads throughout. They basically didn't draft any veterans. Completely.
Taylor's played before. But...
Well, Taylor played one match. He's bad. No disrespect meant to Taylor.
Yeah.
And then she had the one match. He's basically almost a rookie, though, as far as that goes. Totally went through everything else. But I will say, I tweeted this out last night. I'll throw it out there right now. I actually got a chance last night to sit down behind the scenes of the Gucciverse, and I got to see the dossier, the famed dossier that Finstock talked about. That was curated by Craig the Barbarian Gainer. And I will say, go ahead.
The dossier that seemed to grow by 100 pages every 10 minutes.
I got to see the full 1,737 pages, whatever it was. Okay, I didn't want I have to read through the whole thing.
Thomas, that's the most Gucci thing ever. We were in Orlando, and he had these sunglasses in Orlando. At the start of the night, they were $200 sunglasses. By the end of the night, he's like, where are my $5,000 sunglasses at? So that's Gucci.
That's Gucci in a nutshell, basically, because he is a nut, pretty much. That's how you cover it. But I did see the dossier. It was real, and I gotta tell you guys, I don't know. I can't vouch for anybody else who did their homework with the rookies as far as that goes. These guys did do their homework. I mean, there was like legitimately like stats, questions, as far as like character work. I mean, they actually sat down, a lot of these people, a lot of them, and went to town and really, I gotta say, I didn't know half the people. I don't think I knew any of the people that they drafted beyond like some of the later round people that were thrown, like Brother Lomas and Rick Radis, only because they had been pushed by Christian at some point. Kim Taylor Foster, who was actually on our show, was one of our rookies that we had the European friendly edition of C2A. But I got to say, everybody has counted out the Finstock Exchange right away. And they've said, like, this is not because they don't know the names. To me, not knowing the names doesn't necessarily mean they're bad players. I definitely think it's a gamble. But one other thing I want to throw out there before I go on to hear what you guys have to think about it, the rest of the thing. Last year, the Finstock Exchange came into the league with the 4 big dogs. The 4 supposedly had Bateman, Merle, Roca, and Riley. They're 4 of the best players of all time. And they had the Barbarian and the Hot Rookie. And they're expected to do nothing but win. And what happened? They faltered. And all of a sudden, Dagnino went from Manager of the Year to, well, let's face it, he was pretty much a joke for a lot of the league at that point. What better thing can Finstock do except return the favor and do it exactly the opposite way, drafting a whole team of rookies and everybody saying, what an idiot, what a moron, what a reject. And then all of a sudden he does well. Maybe half his team is like Adam Collins level players. We don't know until we find out. And then he comes back and wins that way. It's never a dull thing for Gucci to be underrated. He loves being the underdog. I want to cautiously throw out there that everyone else is giving him like the worst grades of the draft. I cannot give him a bad grade. I can give him an incomplete because I got to find out what these guys are up to. I think potentially you could see the Finstock Exchange being strong next year, especially because I got to hear a little bit about some of these players. Griffin Newman, for example, and I'll throw it out there right now. Griffin Newman supposedly did professional trivia, movie trivia in New York City, and had to retire because he wouldn't lose. I don't know how it's going to translate to Schmoedown. Who knows? You know what I mean? As far as I know, but that excites me. That's an interesting gamble to take. I want to see how it works out. I'm excited to see how it works out. What are your guys' thoughts on that, though?
So this is like my overall take on the percentage of rookies this season is that I'm super excited to see them playing things like that. But what I felt like worked well last year is if you, for example, I don't know any of the people on the FinStack Exchange pretty much. If two of them were to face each other in a match, I don't know either player. I know nothing about them. I'm not as hyped for that match because I'm going completely blind. Now, if let's say one of the rookies is going against Roka, I know Roka. I've experienced Roka. I'm drawn to the match because I want to see what this rookie does against Roka. That's kind of how I discovered the Barbarian and all these other new rookies from last year that now some of my favorites is seeing them against players that I already know and have experience with, things like that. So to draft so many rookies, especially in the FinStack Exchange, FinStack Exchange was my faction last year. I was pumped. I wanted to buy the merch that didn't exist, which I'm glad it does now, but I wanted it bad last year. I was all in on the FinStack Exchange because my favorites were there and I was excited to see what they do. I'm not pumped for the FinStack Exchange because I don't know anybody. And so I'm not buying their t-shirt this year. Maybe next mid-season I'll be different pins, but like I feel like the good balance of rookie and vet, like almost like even 50-50 or maybe like 60-40 of vet to rookie is that good balance where you get to introduce these new players to the world, but still you got your comfort food, your comfort with your vets that you've known for 2 or 3 seasons. So that's my overall thoughts on especially the FinStack Exchange being practically entirely rookies.
It's a ballsy strategy. I'll give him that. It's a ballsy strategy. Really? What are your thoughts on that?
My take on it is we act like the Schmoedown is like this like 100-year-old sport that has like proven winning ways to win. This is the second year we're doing factions. So, I mean, and honestly, last year, one of the main reasons that the corruption won is you have Chance who came out of nowhere and wins the IG tournament while Mike makes the finals, which dumped a ton of points into them. And then Adam Collins goes on a run so all you need is if you get 3 people that you can do, singles, teams, and IG or Star Wars, you can get a lot of points. The fact that they're all rookies, honestly, maybe it works good for Roka because he's the top dog now. He doesn't have to worry about any other egos. We don't know what their egos are. They can mold this team into what they want it to be. I trust the Barbarian because apparently that dude is like a Schmoedown fanatic, and he probably did a ton of did these interviews. He knows what he wants to what he's looking for. We'll see. I agree with Paul. I said it last night on our live reaction. Someone gave him like an F, and I was like, dude, it's an I. We don't know anything. Like, there's not even any data on these people, so like we can't even.
All there is.
Who knows?
We just don't see it. There's no public data. Barbarian has all the data.
Yeah,
we'll see how it translates. Thomas, I'm going to
for what it's worth, I had extensive conversations with the Barbarian. He really plumbed the depths in terms of mining for information that would be critical to whether you're going to pick a player at any round of the draft. And he was smart enough and humble enough to know his own limitations. And he straight up told me, he's like, I'm not going to give you a quiz because Star Wars wise, my knowledge, I don't think is adequate to be able to judge anybody in the Star Wars division. And I think that's a sign of somebody that's got a good focus. But my takeaway from the Barbarian, and I will give them the benefit of the doubt as a team, that this is going to be infectious because I think he's going from rookie mode into stepping into more of a pseudo management role, even if it's an unofficial one. He is laser focused. I've met few people that are as focused on not just his own performance, but the faction's performance as the Barbarian. I know we haven't gotten to the round yet, but don't sleep on Gold Leader. I will tell other Star Wars players out there right now, my free piece of advice to you: don't walk into your match against Evan thinking that you can half-ass it and just walk through, get a TKO or get a TK or get a KO against somebody because you don't know him, because he doesn't have a big Twitter or YouTube following, because I think you're going to get embarrassed. And if Evan is the kind of player that they've drafted up and down the board, that's a dangerous team.
Well, that's a good thing you have that recognition. I will say, and not to push another channel, but the Gucciverse last night did have a bunch of the FinSock Exchange rookies come on. Ty Lieberman was on there. The Tyrant, he's a great character as well. And they did push the Gold Leader a lot, and he made it sound like that. Barbarian actually said, I don't know how public he said this or not, but he did say he's very confident in his own abilities. Obviously, the Barbarian's always been confident in the abilities, and for rightfully so. He said he thinks there's 2 rookies in the draft so far that he knows after quizzing everybody that could beat him in the league. And that's a high mark for me. And he said they both are on the exchange. So that's an interesting thing to say. If there are 2 people who are that level, even Barbarian level, and then Evan Bushkar as the Gold Leader, as a Star Wars player like Thomas is saying, that says something to me. I mean, again, the proof is going to be in the pudding, right? The proof is going to be in the pudding when it happens. I am very cautiously excited to see where the exchange is going to go. I think they're going to turn some heads. So I think we should move on because we're actually going through this very slowly. We're at this point,
the best pick. I'll introduce the pick, Paul. Shut your face. I'll introduce
that
this
enraged
pick.
me. Okay, I have something.
The Rockstars select the greatest man alive, Brandon the Hitman Hanna, best pick of the whole draft.
Calm yourself.
Woo!
Calm yourself. Roxy, I thought we were friends. C2A and you, I thought we had a really good relationship. I mean, you're so close to Jake and Paul and things like that. I thought we were close. Why would your first draft pick be our arch nemesis? The one person we have a rivalry with.
I was my best friend next doors.
I always find it funny that Brandon had turns on C2A and Billy's still like, yeah, I'm all here for it. Yeah, what is that? Stockholm syndrome? What is that, Billy?
Yeah, what is that?
Like he's beating yes.
Please hit me harder. Is that what's happening here? Because, like, seriously.
Brandon and I, we bonded over Diddy's breakfast that just makes us lifelong friends. You know, and I will cut you all to the side any day of the week for my best friend Brandon Hanna. What?
Fair enough. I do appreciate the loyalty. I wish he showed you guys the same loyalty that you're showing him.
Yeah,
that's okay. But all that point aside, I'm going to try to be what's the word? Objective about this.
Objective. Okay, fine.
But he does add value to the Stars. That's for sure. He's a vet in the league at this point. He's probably one of the most hated players in the league at this point, and that means he's doing his job purposely because he doesn't care about winning fans over. That's never been his shtick, and you know what? He has it. But he is a very solid IG player. And the Stars now have 2 solid IG players right away at this point. But not only that, I do want to point out what I was impressed by Brandon Hanna last year was his team match he did with Jader. They lost that match, but he did a solid job on that team. Like, I was surprised he'd never done singles or teams before. I wasn't sure how it was going to roll for him. But I want to say that if we pair him up with somebody big at some point, or possibly someone who maybe one of the rookies who's very top level, I don't know. We don't know until we see. Brandon Hanna could be definitely a great complementary player. And if he can do that and do the IG and they kick it up a level, this could be a great solid level pick for Roxy. And I'll say that with a heavy heart because of our status with him. Thomas, do you know? This is a little more outside of your Star Wars realm, obviously, but did you have ever looked at Brett Hanna, seen what he's done, and what your thoughts are?
What I'll say about him, he's the reason that it's going to take me getting drag kicking and screaming if I ever do IG. It's a player like watching a player like him. I'm like, did we watch the same movie? I missed all of this, but yeah. So I not surprised that he went first round. So I'm glad for him that he didn't drop. I hate that it wasn't a drop to the den though.
That was a thought. I honestly, that was my prediction. I thought he was going
Like
back.
him and Saul together, like that. That would have been a hell of a 1-2 IG punch.
That would have been fun. But all right, let's move on.
He's another player. Just real quick, he's another player who he's in his real life. He's an engineer, so the brain is there. And he's only lost to Chandru in Intergeekdom. It's the only player he's lost to. So
the champion.
Definitely a huge pick.
I mean, when you only lose to the guy who's a champion, that's not a bad thing necessarily. And yes, I don't know if you watched Green Hornet yet. It's a bane of Brandon's existence at this point. I still wouldn't watch that movie though, so I don't necessarily blame him for not watching that movie. Let's move on to Swag. This is the one I loved this, and I wanted this to happen. People said this wasn't going to happen. Although part of me did want to see Eric Zipper return to the dungeon. Yeah, actually, such a great. Yes, he did. Right, he did lose to Damon as well. That's true. We should throw that in there, Billy, to fact check us.
That's true. Yes, yeah.
It was on a Star Wars question, so I can't blame him for losing to a Star Wars champion on a Star Wars question. So it is what it is. But yeah, so. But you're right. Fact check on that. I kind of almost forgot that. To a degree. But moving on to Swag, I wanted to see Eric Zipper return to the dungeon two-way because he has such a great relationship with Kaiser. It was great seeing them with Smets and everything else. By the way, that's another dungeon that we didn't bring up when we talk about the dungeon. Smets being involved, as much as he's going through what he's going through, hashtag Smash Cancer. Of course, we love the Smasher. He's always Action Army. But he's going to be there doing a lot of that, what he can do as far as helping the team study it, if nothing else. And with that kind of guy on your side, that you can't do wrong. But going back to Zipper, if he couldn't go back to the dungeon, it was kind of heartwarming to see the return to his best friend, Winston Marshall, reuniting World's Finest from back in the day. I love where Eric Zipper was taken because I think he's the kind of guy that is perfect for the first round of the draft after all the three keepers, because he's been making such strides. He's a solid IG player. He's a solid teams and singles player at this point. He took Ethan Irwin to the limit last year. He's not quite the top tier, but that's what you're at this point. He's a complementary piece that you can team up with anybody, and you can slot him. He's the kind of guy with a three-way player. You can slot him in any time, and it's always good to have someone around. I need a scheduling player. I need a singles match there. I'll put him in. I need an IG player. I can put him in. He can't do Star Wars, but that's all right. I don't know. I love this pick. I'm happy to see him back on Swag. What do you guys thought?
Just for storyline alone, I was thrilled with this one because the reuniting and like they had the falling out and all the tension between them, and it's like kind of like an aw moment because they're reuniting and clearly things have been forgiven and things and stuff. So it was a cute, heartwarming moment. I'm so excited for Zip. He's one of my favorites, and I think he personality wise as well is going to fit perfect on Swag. I'm excited.
Really?
I love Zipper. Again, he's in multiple divisions, so there's a lot of value in the pick. He sits in with anybody knowledge-wise, so he can pretty much base with any team. It's an A+ pick, and he works well with. We know he works well with Winston. Like the chemistry's there. So
yeah, it's good to see that. It's good to see him.
And as also I think personality-wise, it fits more with Swag.
Yeah, it's gonna be. Maybe we'll see a more happier Zip. He kind of was a little more morose in the dungeon, a little more dour. Maybe he'll get a little dance and a little flashback to his footwork there, as we say. All right, well, let's move on then back to the den for their taking of Corruption's pick. This is where Marisol is basically the Marisol decision comes into play. This is where we have to judge whether the trade was successful or not, because Thomas was her first pick. But that was her pick. That was going to be her pick anyway. That might have influenced the ability to get Thomas what she would take in rounds in the 7th, 8th, and 9th pick, so to speak. But Alonzo Duralde is the first choice here. It's an interesting choice to me in terms of because I don't know how I feel about the player. I love Alonzo Duralde as a person. I love him as a person. I love him as a trivia knowledge person. What's always kind of seemed to hold him back. He doesn't care, but it's not something he seems to have a drive for it. He seems to be kind of the old school Schmoedown player where he got to come in, have a good time, sit down, put the feet up, and answer some trivia. And with his knowledge base, it works because he has such a strong knowledge base. It works.
Mhm.
As far as now, when we're driving we gotta have that hunger to win the faction championship. Putting him here, it's almost like his knowledge puts him at this level. But I don't know if I'd take him if I'm a manager at that point for the reasons I said.
I do kind
Here's
of feel
what I
similar.
think. Go ahead, Kelsey.
Okay. I was going to say, I feel similarly. I love Alonzo, and he is super knowledgeable. I think he is at his best in teams. I think he's a really good counterbalance to many different players involved in Schmoedown. He is a classic Schmoedown player, though, where he joined when it was like more of like a fun hobby, and nobody was studying 10 hours a day for a match and things like that. You knew what you knew. You went in, you played, you went home. But his knowledge base is just there, and if put up with the right teammate, he could be super scary in teams. So the fact that, he does play singles as well, but I do feel like he is at his peak in teams, and so drafting high up a player that is going to mostly probably be in teams. I think it's a good choice. I love Alonzo. I think it's gonna be good, and also she now knows his strengths, because she learned the hard way that he is good at festival tournaments and things like that. And so, like, I think it's gonna be cool. And I think also there's some good storyline bits with that as well. So I like the choice. I can see what you're saying, but I think with Kate, I think it's gonna go well. So
yeah, fair.
Here's what I think happened. I think last year Kate didn't know anything about Alonzo Duralde. So when they lost to Alonzo, she did a ton of research on Alonzo Duralde. And now she knows everything there is to know inside and out about Alonzo Duralde. And this is an excellent pick. The knowledge is clearly there. He's proven he has the recall. He can put up points. He's put up record, almost, I think they almost broke the record one time. Like he can put up a lot of points. And the question of like, does he study a lot? He lives in the movie space. That's what he does for a living. He watches movies. He talks about movies. Like, that is studying. Like, maybe it's not, dossiers and flip books and trapper keepers full of knowledge or whatever, but that's studying. So at that point, it's a good value pick too.
Real quick, I gotta say, all jokes aside, I'm influenced. Like last night on the Gucciverse, we started saying every time you said the word dossier, we had to drink. So every time you said dossier, I started reaching for my drink. I'm like, that's not happening anymore. But I do want to point this out a lot.
Right? We don't plug the Gucciverse.
I'm not plugging. I'm just saying what happened. This is actually a good point. Maybe he doesn't need to be driven as much as he needs to just have a teammate who will know the way and lead him to a degree. That could be a good point.
Mark Riley.
Mark Riley is that kind of player. He does know the game very well. Jonathan, what do you think about your new player?
This is a question for the three of you. What is it like? The last time that Alonzo got a round 2 question wrong was like Ronald Reagan still president. It's been that long that he's been down. I think he is. I look forward to. He's forgotten more about movies than I know about them. So to learn at a guy like his feet, and I think he and Riley are going to be sluggers.
That is a great team up. I do love the fact we have Mark. The fact that Den got Mark Riley so late was also you're talking not next
shocker.
Round, much lower round. That's he's a guy who might not have. He's kind of struggled a little bit over the years, back like year or two. But he's a champion. He's a champion level player. He's been there. He's been at the top. He did great with Who's the Boss. Having him on the team with something like a Duralde, that could be huge for the Den. That could be absolutely huge to have a second team after the Preston Goddard team up. I like this. I like this that way. I am starting to come around on the pick. I do question the drive aspect of whether that will come into play, but you guys are all making solid points.
The other thing is Alonzo Duralde is basically like Drew McQueen, and Drew McQueen got signed in free agency. So, like, to pick him at the end of round 1, there you go. It's good stuff.
That's a good point. Good point.
I was surprised when she picked it. I like the pick.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said before, I don't know. I would have taken him for those reasons, but I can't knock the pick and where it was. I definitely can't do that. But moving on to hit the Den second pick there, the other piece of the Marisol trade, so to speak, she brings Saul back.
No.
Saul, I'm a big fan of Saul. I'm a big fan of his
Saul.
character. Well, he's a nut, and I love talking to him whenever I get a chance to. He only had the one match last year. That was his debut against Brandon Hanna. He lost to Mr. Hanna, but he did come off very well. It seems like he knows what he's doing in the division. And I feel like a year later, or a season later, or whatever, half a season later after, as it will be, he's only had more chance to study at this point. I think this might be the year of Saul. Like, we're going to see a big eruption out of him. And if he does, it's going to be great for the league, because not only can he, if he does the trivia right, he's definitely going to be a character who can spit fire at anybody and not hold anything back. He can promote like nobody's business. And I think he's going to be the Den's mouthpiece of it, as far as I can see, even more than Kate at this point. I love Kate. I think Saul's going to be spitting fire left and right. He already tried to start our podcast with LGR. Somewhat succeeded at sometimes, but I love him for it anyway. What are your guys' thoughts on Saul here at this point? Is this too high for Saul, or what do you think?
I feel 50-50 on the placement for Saul. I don't think it's too high for Saul from knowing Saul and just talking with him about movies and getting to hang out with him and things like that. So knowing him as a person, I think Saul is a great IG player and deserves to be drafted this fast. I can see why people who have only experienced him that one match with Brandon might not see that. So like I get some I don't know if anyone criticizes him being drafted up, I can see their point, but just have faith in people who know him. He's going to be scary this season. I truly believe he is going to kick butt. And you're right. I think he's probably going to be one of the best people on the mic this season and on Twitter. Oh my God. He's such a troll on Twitter, and I love it. The best possible. So yeah, I'm excited to see what he's all in. I'm super excited to see what he does this season.
Have you talked to Saul yet, Thomas? Have you had a chance?
He reached out immediately. This guy has a fire in his belly, probably unlike anybody else in the league. He is ready to come out swinging. I think he characterizes himself as a monkey with a machine gun, which is about as accurate as you can get.
That is.
Yeah.
The man he's consumed. He's consumed with one thing, and it's not just winning for himself, but bringing the Den to the top of the pack. And I have look, if I need to pick a hype man to introduce me, and it's going to be Saul. If I need a study partner to help push me, it's going to be Saul, and right alongside Lacey. And I think the danger with Saul this year is that we have an interlocking faction that whatever areas he needs to shore up on, if there are any, we've got talent across the board that are going to help him get to that point. So I don't know that he has any significant weak points, because he's been focused since and hungry since losing that match. I look at him like I look at Robert Parker, right? A hell of a lot of talent. Things didn't quite go the right way, and he didn't get the opportunity, given how 2020 went, that he might have otherwise in a normal year, but that has only fueled him for 2021. So great teammate for me.
I love that. All right. Next pick was definitely another one of those kind of moments in the draft that we were all kind of waiting for. Obviously, Shannon had kind of threatened to cut people if they touched Marisol or Laura Kelly. She did make good on getting Marisol back, and people didn't expect it. But now we got Swag saying, basically, you to Shannon. He's going to take Laura Kelly and bring her on home. My two thoughts on this is, A, he took her over Ace Cabrera, which I felt a little surprised at, like, given the Swag had seemed to be very much a big loyalty faction. I mean, he did get very excited when he was able to take Ace a round later. I believe it was 1 round later. Yeah, 1 round later. So Ace does come home, but he chose Laura. That says something to me with how much he has faith in Laura. And Shannon was not very happy, but I don't know if she can do anything about it at this point. She didn't have the capital to do it. I think it was all kind of unfortunate for her, but Laura Kelly going to Swag. I do like that Laura Kelly. The only thing I don't like about it is Laura Kelly can't be as much of a heel as she was last year, because Swag is not a very much a heel faction. So I think we have to get Laura Kelly a little more bounce into her step. But maybe it'll work for her. Maybe it won't.
Wait, Paul. Paul, real quick, who was the heel of the year this year?
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
That
True.
was
You're
good.
right.
What
That would be my argument. Yeah.
That's true. It could. It could. It could.
Yeah. So my take, Laura is one of my favorite people in the community, Star Wars, Schmoedown in general. Like, we got to hang out with her in a couple of streams, and she is awesome. I feel like she blossomed joining corruption when she could turn that heel turn, because like Laura's like one of the sweetest people ever, but something about her going to the dark side just like it just brought her to a whole new level. I would be very sad if she lost that by going to swag. But here's the thing though, Ace, he's of the light side. That he always talks about that. He is the good, he is the light side. What a good Star Wars counterbalance to keep her being the dark. You have do you know what I mean? So like please don't make Laura not be dark anymore or be a heel. I would be so sad. I would be devastated because she is so good at it.
I did forget that.
Played for a title before. She has a number 1 contenders match. It's a shock that she was still there, honestly, a little bit. And you get a chance to stab a fellow manager in the back. I hope that he got a restraining order for Shannon before he picked Laura, but it's.
I wonder whether Winston is playing the long, because I do not think him jumping over Ace or like not picking Ace in this round was anything except playing a long game here. And having interacted with Winston, obviously it was a huge gamble because Ace is his guy. He proved himself last year. I know he had the stumble against Alex, but I sort of put that in a box. And it was a gamble because I thought that it was amazing to me that Ace ended up slipping right back to Winston. But with Laura, I have to wonder, is he going to position her for a trade right back to Shannon? Whichever way this goes, this contender match goes, whether he's going to trade away potentially some points to Shannon. Shannon's got a pair of Star Wars players that could fit right into swag. And if his intent, and this is no disrespect to Laura, but if Winston is rightfully, has faith in Ace as his lead guy in Star Wars and picks up sort of a partner in crime to Ace in a trade like that, in addition to some other assets, I don't disagree with that move. I think that'd be huge, but I could see her getting dangled for trade bait, particularly if she wins.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that you do make a good point. It's just I have a hard time seeing what Shannon has as far as value, as far as the trade. I mean, it's going to be an interesting trade. The pieces don't match up to me at this point, but I haven't looked at let me look at the rosters themselves. I guess you could find a way, but I feel like swag. She
has Joseph Scrimshaw. She has Sean Sullivan. I don't even think she needs to trade for Laura, but if she wants to show loyalty, maybe one of those two, and you package in maybe a rookie like a Jacob London, maybe James White. She got some value late in the draft that she could maybe use to, if she really wants Laura, that she could get her back. But I don't think she needs to. Honestly, I think she got Scrimshaw and Sean Sullivan. I love Laura, but she's fine in Star Wars right now. Like,
I will say this. I want to bring this up now, even though Scrimshaw comes up a little bit later on. I could be wrong. I heard rumblings that he might not be available all year.
I've heard the same.
So that might be one of the reasons why he went so late. And it might be the reason why you wouldn't want to pick him up in a trade, because if he's not available at all the time. So you've heard that too, Thomas, you're saying, correct? Yeah.
I have. I've heard maybe part of the year, but that's why I think if Swag trades him at the right time and they trade for a Scrimshaw and say, look, I don't care what Scrimshaw is going to do this year. You're getting the advantage of everything that Laura has earned. Because I guess I'm assuming that the points that Laura has earned would transfer to corruption. So it's a big gamble for Winston, but if he gets the right value, he's certainly getting a highly capable player in Scrimshaw if he's looking to plug Star Wars for Star Wars. But I think he could sort of get Shannon over a barrel if she's really that loyal to Laura and wants to give up some additional material there. It might be worth it in the long run for Swag.
I was going to say, I do like the idea of what you said, Billy, of plugging in a rookie potential.
So
Because Scrimshaw's available for the last tournament of the year, that might be all that Swag needs him for.
Right? That could be great.
And that's the thing is, if you keep Laura Kelly now and you get let's say she beats Molly Damon, she gets the title shot, she plays in the title shot, win or lose, you still get value from that. And then you trade her, you got those points from her already, and then if you get Scrimshaw later in the year, it all works out.
I do think the points stay, though. If she wins the point, Laura wins.
It's Cabrera, so it's not like you're going to be left with nothing for Star Wars. You trade for Scrimshaw and something else.
Yeah. I do think if Laura wins points for Swag in the beginning and she gets traded, I think the points will stay with Swag, the initial points.
That makes sense.
With Swag, yes.
Yeah, at that point. But anyway, you do make some good stuff.
Sport. What's in baseball, and then you get traded. Your wins don't go with you.
Right. What's cool about it, the idea is, and maybe something they're going to explore later on, is if you trade somebody for some of these rookies, you got a lot of rookies on each side now. You get to see what the rookies are doing so far. You might get a match or two out of Jacob London or out of I guess that's the only rookie. Clee Wiggins hasn't played very much. Maybe you get to see more. So you get to evaluate more instead of trading blind on them right now at this point. So that's value in itself.
Claudia Dolph got traded like 5 times last year, so she's used to being traded. You can maybe she gets traded again.
That's true. All right, let's move it on along there. I'm very interested now, especially this one, because I want to talk to Thomas about the Star Wars division exactly. Didn't really, again, you said before, it didn't shape up exactly how you thought it was going to as far as drafting went. Zach Parker going to Stars. What were your thoughts about that?
That's a danger. That's like a master and Padawan. If you don't know, Alex and Zach are very close. They live in the same town in Atlanta. They are good friends. I see them being able to get together, COVID aside, and have study sessions. I guarantee you, Alex was in her ear. Roxy didn't need to know anything about Dragon Con players or watch anything for Alex to say, look, that's your guy. Marie is a great player. I would give Zach the edge over her. And I mean no disrespect, because she won Dragon Con this year, but I think Zach, his body of work is more consistent. He's done better overall, and he's also beaten Alex. And I think there's some strategy there. There's some strategy that I think mirrors what Winston did, because Christian has been, I think, pretty transparent that there's not going to be an interfaction battle, right? So Alex is not going to battle Zach. So right there, Roxy has removed one of the 3 Dragon Con players from contending against Alex should he keep the belt. Likewise, Winston has removed a significant Star Wars player from contention within his own ranks. So whether Ace or Laura win the belt this year, if that happens, they're not going to have to battle each other and one knock the other out like happened last year. So there's probably an undercurrent there.
Interesting. A good point there. I'm interested to see where the Dragon Con players especially end up. I like that idea of taking someone off the board. If you had to power rank them at this point, I'll take it. I won't make you rank yourself number 1. I'll let you take yourself out of the mix. Alex, Damon, and then the other 2 Dragon Con players, how would you power rank them? Like 1, 2, 3.
Alex, Zach, Marie. And I like Alex has the natural advantage of having played Schmoedown. So that's a huge advantage there. But having seen them year in and year out, Alex is the coolest of all 3. The only time you're going to beat Alex is if you get into a kink in his armor. He's not going to have an issue with recall. He's not going to sit there and sputter and not remember an answer that he knows. You're going to have to get him on a day where he just does not know the answer. And so that alone makes him number 1. I've seen the other 2. I think it's very close. I don't mean to say that there's much daylight between Marie and Zach. Other folks that face them, to include me, are going to need to take that challenge very seriously. But I think that's the easy 1, 2, 3 for me.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I found your video froze. I don't know if you noticed this or not. If you want to refresh or something, perhaps, and come back in, we'll let you back.
Yeah,
in.
let's see here.
We'll just keep going at that point. It's okay. It happens. Tech issues are dime a dozen as far as this goes. Real quick, we'll get his thoughts on this when he comes back real quick, but let's go through, we'll just speed through the rest of this round as far as this goes, because outside, we have a lot of Star Wars to talk about in this round at this point. Sandwich around Mark Riley at the Den, which we kind of talked about. He's coming back now. There he is. He's coming back now. Move that over. There you go. You're perfect. I didn't want to cut you off in your middle of your we still heard everything you said, so I didn't want to cut you off, but now we can see this.
I frozen, so I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. It's all good. The rest of the round was Star Wars, except for we talked about Mark Riley being drafted. We all talked already about how we were surprised at, maybe at how low he went, but he's a solid addition to the Den. Let's talk about the rest of Star Wars. You already mentioned Gold Leader. We just talked about Zachary Cat. The rest of the round was Marie and Molly Damon. I like their factional choices at this point. Like, I think Evan's going to be good for Barbarian at this point. Marie, of course, you already mentioned as being a strong competitor, if not quite as good as Zach and Alex. That's fine, but he goes to the usual suspects. Gives them a solid 5 at that point. Liz Shannon Miller, Ethan Irwin, Drew McQueenie, Moses on IG, Marie Wilson at Star Wars. That's pretty overall good. What about Eric Whiteley? I don't know how much you've interacted with him. It's funny as far as this goes. If you watch the live draft, man, did he bring the fans? Man, did he bring his fan base? Everything was about
That
Eric
was the
Whiteley.
Audience.
That was like half the audience. Also, like when he was drafted, everybody kind of left. It was after. It was like, holy shit! Like when he got drafted, I mod for the SCN channel, and holy shit! Like I was like, I can't even see if anything was being said that shouldn't have been said because it was just go by too fast. He definitely brings fans. I don't know much about him as far as I know he got a big following, but what do you know about him as far as that goes?
So his core is Star Wars, right? He comes across very well. He's a humble guy, but he, I think, relates everything back to Star Wars, which I think is a powerful way to operate, where his understanding of other properties is filtered through his understanding of Star Wars. And when your brain works in that way, that makes you a dangerous competitor when you mix in some prep. I think his big to me, if I'm as a competitor, I'm telling you his big weak point is that no amount of making YouTube videos, no amount of doing reactions and performing for the crowd in videos is equivalent to performing at this level. He's not going to have an issue in front of the bright lights. And when it comes time for in-person events, he's going to sell out the audience by himself. So that's going to be intimidating for whoever he's against. But he's got a mountain to climb in terms of prep that somebody like a Marie, a Zach, or Alex do not. And what my wonder is whether somebody like that can translate that innate Star Wars knowledge to rapid recall at the detail level that you have to know. And, case in point, and this isn't probably fair to him because he was put on the spot, but they had a Streamlab on one of the interviews he was on, and he's asked, he spotted one of the 2 sectors, the sectors of planets that are featured in Empire Strikes Back. So the person asking the question was, the Sluis sector is one of 2 sectors of planets that are involved in Empire Strikes Back. What is the second? And he didn't have any answer. And that's a sector that's not just mentioned, but it's mentioned in sort of a famous line, like right before Leia says, like, the Lando system. And that to me, like right there, I'm like, that's a weak point for you. Like that's like a 5-pointer, right? That could be you could run a perfect game. That's your 5-pointer. I'm going to get that like cold, unprepared. I go into that video, not in fighting shape and know the answer to that. He's got to get to that level. And I'm telling you, like, Eric, if you're watching this, like, I love you. I love your channel. But if you're going to compete against the likes of Alex, Marie, and Zach, you've got to get that stuff down. And I think he has a capability. I think he went probably a little later than I expected him to, but he's going to make a good fit on that team. And I think he's hungry enough and has a rabid rabid enough following that's going to motivate him, that he's going to be a dangerous competitor from day one. Because I think whatever I'm saying here, he knows already. He doesn't need somebody like me to tell him that. I guarantee you he's probably out there right now studying. So, that alone should tell you a lot about him. So I don't want to face him early on, but if we do battle, then, it is what it is. But yeah.
Interesting. I almost wonder if like you're saying, he has some weaknesses. Maybe facing him early on would be a good thing, because maybe he'll take a loss and then he'll really see where he stands, and then he'll really know where he has to fill in those gaps a little better. But I'll have to say how that goes.
Star Wars is a strange world, the way the division is now. It's like you could be exceptional. Like the sort of performance you clock in Star Wars could be like a championship performance in IG or singles, and it just like the dice does not roll your way. Every one of your competitors' questions, and you get two that are just like, where the hell is that from? And that's the difference. And that's, it's tough, but that's the way the division is right now, and probably is how it will be until they expand the question base.
Right. Well, the good
Andrew
Dimalanta. The good thing about the expansion of the division actually makes that case for you, though, because like before, you could have a match and lose, and you wouldn't play again the year. That's why the records in Star Wars divisions are about like 1-1 or 0-2 or 2, because you don't have that many choices. With the expansion of the division and possibly 2 tournaments this year, you could actually stomach a loss and then still come back and win. So I think that's important for the division at this point. So rounding out
before we move on real quick, I just want to Thomas touched on him a little bit as well. Evan Bushgar is, I think, a really good pick. One of the things that impressed me the most about him was in our interview, he talked about the fact that he's fluent in the language of Arash, whatever. Like the fact that you are studying the film enough that you're fluent in one of the languages from the film shows that you have knowledge throughout the whole film. Like,
that's commitment.
I will tell you right now, there's a virtual trivia company called Trivia Nation that does themed trivia, most nights of the week. And it's similar to the Schmoedown in that, like, the questions are timed, and honestly, the points that you get are tied to how quickly you answer the questions. Now, it's all multiple choice, but there's still some hard questions involved. And Laura Kelly DMs me one night, and she's like, "Are you like, you've got to be playing? You're gold leader, right?" Because like I'm a huge Y-wing fan. I said, "No, I'm like watching Lord of the Rings tonight. I'm not doing Star Wars trivia tonight." She was like, "Who the hell is this guy?" I had no clue at the time, but now I come to find out it's Evan, like going out there and smashing skulls in virtual trivia. So I will be fully transparent that when the Barbarian and I were talking, I said, don't sleep on this guy. I had a decent idea that I might fall to the and get picked up by Finstock. And I said, look, if I get to pick my dark horse rookie of everybody, Evan, because I saw Evan in a combine. So I've seen him answering trivia, which is different than a lot of the other folks. And it didn't surprise me that they picked him up where they picked him up. I'll say that.
Right. All right. Now, Molly Damon rounded out the round. Molly Damon coming to the dungeon. It's a great pick for up to the dungeon at this point because she's got the #1 contendership match already in play. She like Kaiser says, the championship belt is already in her home. So, I mean, there's definitely that aspect to it. I like the pick for that very reason. Again, you have Mara already in the Star Wars League. You have Molly, who is a strong player in and of herself. I like the pick here. I think it's a good choice for the dungeon, going for the belts early. What are your thoughts on that?
I want to see Damon v. Damon.
So do I. So much. Right?
Give me that matchup.
Now. That's a pay-per-view waiting to happen.
That's a live event. Wait till there's a live event so I can see that in person. And
I think Christian wants that to happen more than any of us.
Yeah. like Molly, I know Molly, I know you've earned your shot, but you're gonna have to wait till COVID's over to play it.
That's right. Sorry, hold on.
I need to see this in person, so just hold it a little bit.
I'll be first in line.
Stand to the other. That was my favorite line of the whole night.
All right, we're gonna move on to round 3 then. This is where the Stars come in with their supplemental pick from that trade that went down. She gets that extra 3rd round pick. And this is where Janine falls. Janine the Machine goes to Roxy. I love this pick for both of these people. Janine has always been kind of an underrated player. She's never quite made it. She's always kind of run some bad luck, always great with the entrances, the costumes. She definitely works hard. I just think pairing her with Roxy Stryer as manager is the best thing that could have happened to her. Because Roxy's management style, I think, is going to bolster Janine in a way that Sam's couldn't. And that's not a knock on Sam. I think different managers work better for different competitors. I think Roxy's style works perfectly for what Janine needs. She's going to give her a kick in the ass when she needs it. She's going to make sure she doesn't get down on herself, as we can see, because Janine sometimes has some moments where she gets into her head a little bit, like a mini Jeff Snyder to a degree. And Roxy already has shown that she can keep Jeff Snyder in a game. If she can keep Jeff Snyder his head into it when he's faltering, I think she can do it with Janine as well.
I agree. I was super excited to see Janine go to the Stars. I think it's going to be a perfect fit. I think in promos and things like that, I think their dynamic is going to be awesome together. And that's like Janine's always been good about like the promo talk and the crap talk, things like that. But I feel like just being with Roxy, it's going to like turn it up to 11 a little bit. She's going to be even more fire in her promos and things. So I'm excited to see what they do together.
Yeah, it fits perfectly with Roxy. I think Roxy has a similar style to Jay Washington. It's funny because they're two completely different people, but like they can give you the pep talk, they can give you the kick in the ass, they can give you the shoulder to cry on. Also, the chemistry. Roxy drafts Brandon Hanna in round 1. Now she gets Janine the Machine. They are friends. Schmoedown, so that fits perfectly. Yeah, I loved everything Roxy was doing at this point.
Power. Any thoughts on that, Thomas, at all?
No, keep it moving. I like it. Rolling along.
All right, we'll roll that one along. That's fine. Back to dungeon. Go back to dungeon, and we get Video Drew back to the dungeon. I don't think much to be said about that. I think it's a perfect fit for her. I don't think she wanted to go anywhere else. I think she's a player that's exciting. She had a perfect game at the end of the year. Any quick thoughts on that before we move on at all? I think it's nothing really to say.
Couldn't have been more perfect. That's all I'll say. Just very, very happy. And I got to talk to her that night. Like last night, I visited with her, and she's excited. She is pumped to get to stay in the dungeon. I know the dungeon's pumped to still have her, so super exciting.
I'm actually going to go ahead and, even though we're going round by round, I will jump forward to the next pick that the dungeon got, with Whitney Seibel, and that's the team. You were saying, a team with Whitney, and I think that actually is potentially a great team. Whitney has one of those players who's been very solid knowledge base, has run into a lot of bad luck, not as much into the game necessarily itself as far as game knowledge. So I think that Video Drew and Seibel could be a great deadly team. It could be a dark horse team. I want to see how they roll on that. But we'll move on to the next one, Usual Suspects. Another pick that I think was kind of a steal at this place, getting Stacey Howard to round out. When you already have Liz Shannon Miller, Ethan Irwin, Drew McQueenie, you need someone to team because they can't have a 3-way team. You need a teammate for, I believe it's going to be Drew McQueenie. I kind of everything that's been said, but Ethan and Liz Shannon Miller are going to be teammates. I mean, that's not locked in stone, but that's what the tea leaves are saying. So it looks like we're going to have Stacey Howard with Drew McQueenie potentially. I think it's a great team. Stacey has shown that she can be deadly. She has some inconsistencies sometimes, but having Drew McQueenie at your side, that'll help level out any inconsistencies you have. I love this pick for them. I think it's going to be a great pick for Drew.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I love Stacey, not only because she is fun, she's interesting. I love her promos. I love her character work, but she pulls these questions out of seems like nowhere. It's there somewhere. She's got it, but she like pulls these answers out of nowhere. And it's always entertaining to watch. And her versus Zipper is still one of my favorite matches of last year. It was just so dang good. So I'm excited. I think she'll fit well with the suspects.
Sweet.
I think she also complements Drew McQueenie really well because if Drew McQueenie has holes or weaknesses, I think those might be Stacey Howard's strengths. So, when you got to round out a wheel as a team, they do that together very well.
And next up, we had the second of the Fan League forward. We are in round 3, and 2 out of the 4 Fan League forwards were taken, which again shows where we are in the draft. Thomas, your new teammate Peggy Gubbins. Have you got a chance to talk to her?
Yes, Peggy stood out to me almost immediately. I saw tended to be, it almost seemed like the four of them were just doing interviews together, and that may have been by design, like just mutually beneficial. But the moment that stood out to me, Peggy was on maybe one of her first shows, and Christian came on, and the emotion that she showed, like immediately. And I told her this last night. We were together, and it was the first time that she and I had talked. I said, you made an immediate impression on me because the passion that just came through before you ever said anything. Christian was kind of going one-on-one with each of them. And when it came around to her, she was just choked up about the opportunity to play at this level and to see what this game means to somebody like that. You have to know that she's not going to waste this opportunity, that she's going to come in hungry, that she's going to come in with a chip on her shoulder, and that she's going to come in as a phenomenal teammate that's going to do everything that she can to help our faction and help prop other people up. And I also love her DVD wall, so that's awesome as well.
That's brilliant. Top of all that, for me personally, she's a Chicago Bear fan. So
That's true.
Did you get that? She actually told me we'll play. We're gonna. If I ever make it to Chicago for live, and we're gonna have go to the Bears game together. She's like season tickets for the Bears. I've never even been to Soldier Field, so that's awesome. I do love it. I think Peggy does have passion for the game, and that's something you can't deny.
No.
And that's going to do wonders if you have the knowledge base and you have passion for the game. You'll go places. So.
Plus, I'm excited to see her as a character in the Schmoedown. She's just cool, right? Like I can totally see just like her having this really awesome character work, again, banter, promos, things like that. I know my daughter's gonna love seeing her play. So I'm just hi, Peggy. I'm just super excited that she got drafted, and I think the den with Kate is like perfect.
It's a strong pull for the den. I think it's very exciting. Again. It's so high up in the draft. That was the only thing that's surprising. Not that it's not worthy. It's just that it was detailing how the draft was going at the time. So a lot of people were initially
when one of the family four goes second overall, it kind of like shifts everything. Like, you know, now this is what, third round now we're on. So I mean, is it too high? I don't know. Like.
Well, that's just it. It's kind of like they talk about like drafts, like it was like a fantasy football draft. Like when they go on you go on a run of quarterbacks or something like that. All of a sudden, someone takes one, everybody starts taking them all to make sure. Oh God, everybody's going to get them. So that's kind of partially, I think, what happened here. Someone took a rookie, a few rookies went, like, oh well, all the people I had marked down for the 7th or 8th round, they're going now. I better take them now, and shift some of them down. But, yeah, that's true. If you can watch that, she reacted. She showed the reaction when she got picked. It was. Pure heart. So I gotta say, it's touching when you see somebody so excited about that. It's one of the things you love the game for. So I watch it again. I'm gonna watch it again afterwards because that was that heartwarming. It's great. So speaking of rookies and characters, Jesse Swift, the Mercs. Man, I gotta tell you, Jesse Swift. I don't know much about his trivia, but the boy knows how to promote himself. I think he went so high. Purely the fact that he would make a video almost every day, made the rounds, got to the point where everybody knew his name, even if they didn't care if he was good or not. It's like, all right, I think almost like you could stumble and just like Jesse Swift. Oh, I didn't mean to say that. Oh, well, you're on the team now. I don't think he just made himself known so well. And that's a great choice by him. It worked. It worked wonders. I like it with the Mercs too. The matchup seems to work. I know Juice in the draft is not happy about that. He's got a rivalry built between Jesse Swift and his boy Jacob Whittington, who went later on. But I like the pick there. You guys like what Jesse has to bring to the table?
Yeah, I was really impressed when we interviewed him. I definitely think we didn't quiz him or anything like that, but he definitely has a very strong passion for ID, and so I'm sure the knowledge is there. But you're right, like making yourself like that's commitment, making yourself known, like you know what you want, you're gonna do whatever you can to get what you want, and that's what he did. And not only that, last night I was hanging out on What the Show, and he showed up just to, say hi, stuff like that. So he made the rounds after he got drafted to say hi to everybody, and that's impressive.
Yeah, see, I missed him. I think I missed him on every show we did. Like at that point, he always kind of come on. I'm not around.
I wonder because he's already built himself. I mean, he doesn't have a say as like any of us do in terms of our character, really. Mm-hmm. But he's like built himself into a character of his own and a heel, and. My only worry with Jesse, and I did a combine with him, so I've seen his skill. And I will tell you this: if you're out there, do not challenge him in Marvel MCU type trivia because he will smoke you. But when you come out swinging as he has, and you come out calling out Chandru and make sort of like doing the Babe Ruth bat point toward the the wall there, and calling a home run before the first pitch has been thrown, there's nowhere else to go, right? I'm in that position in a different way just based on where I was drafted. But you give yourself nowhere to go, but do what you say you're going to do, or anything else is failure. And Christian's talked about this. I wouldn't want to set myself, I'm confident in my abilities, but I wouldn't want to set myself up with that sort of self-inflicted pressure. He's done that, but I think that's reflective of his own estimation of his skills and what he's seen in other players. So clearly the Quirky Mercs have seen something there. I don't think it's a bad pick at all. And at the very, I think he said he's going to do a video every single day. So he's going to be in the front of everybody's brains. And that alone, I think, has value to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's interesting because like this draft is clearly loaded with Star Wars players, and it's kind of light almost on Inner Geekdom players. Like,
yeah.
So to get a rookie in the 3rd round who's an Inner Geekdom player, like that's a lot of value there if he is what he says he is.
Yeah, and them going Eric and then Jesse, that 1-2 punch of and I honestly think that Eric, maybe not this season, I think he could be a dangerous IG player in the future if he wants to go that way. He's certainly got the exposure. He works in that field across all spectrums of geekdom. That could be a nasty 1-2 punch in the future. Maybe not 2021, but you could see sort of the seeds of a very dangerous duo there.
I'm moving quickly along there. Mark Haas seems to be very mysterious. Not a Twitter handle, not much about him is in there, but I will say he did get picked up by the exchange. Barbarian did say had a lot of strong things to say about him, and I will, to back that up, Christian mentioned him when he was on our Chilled Action as one of the rookies he was looking out for. When Christian mentions you specifically as for rookies, that's usually a good sign. Usually he picked out Smetsy, you talked about, or you talked about Parker, you talked about a lot of people, and they usually are pretty solid. So if Christian gives you that mark of approval without anything further, that's a good sign. So this might be some great value again for the exchange. You have to see how that works out. Anything else on say about him, or do you want to move on to everybody else? Want to keep going?
Just a quick anecdote. Jacob Patrick just messaged me a little while ago and says he can't even find a picture of Mark Haas.
It's funny. I wish that my internet presence was that right now. Like that's the wish and the desire. I think like 10 years ago, it's the exact opposite. Like you want to be known and whatever. I wish that when you Googled Thomas Harper, it'd just be like, nothing has been found.
Silent assassin, right? Silent assassin. You never know. But all right, next up was the other one of the other fan league for the 3rd of the 4, Jacoby Bancroft with the Stars. That's from everything I've heard, this guy is the goods. Having him on the Stars is going to be interesting for Roxy to do. I think that he fits in well almost anywhere. I love his fashion choices. I love his shirts. Always very flowery. Interested to see how he fits in on the Stars. I like this pick though for her at this point. What do you guys thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I'm interested to see getting to talk to him and his personality, things like that. My first thought wasn't immediately Stars. It was like Quirky Mercs, honestly. It was kind of where I saw him going. But I think Roxy could have a really fun time working with him on his character and getting a dynamic going. So I think it's going to be, I'm excited. I don't have really expectations on what that relationship's going to be like, but I know he's a solid player from research I've done, and I think he's going to do very well in the Schmoedown. So I'm super happy he got drafted.
Could be a good team with Janine, perhaps.
I picture Jacoby having a shirt before this season. Is it like some kind of merch of his own? And I will not tell Kate, but I will probably own some Jacoby merchandise. Have it on under my den clothes. Don't tell anybody.
Download support. I get that.
That's
I don't
right.
know for that. Well, we did talk about. Go ahead. Sorry, Bill.
He won Player of the Year, the fan leagues. Again, the rest of the fan league 4 kind of touted him as the player the best of the four. So, I mean, to get him third of the 4 fan league players seems good to me.
Yeah, that's a good pickup. So, we did talk about Ace already. The only thing to add to Ace was just that I'm hoping he doesn't have a chip on his shoulder for Winston picking Laura over him first. I
don't think Ace Pereira is like capable of having a chip on his shoulder. That dude's too like fun-loving, nice of a guy.
I think he's
chip
happy
on his
to come home.
shoulder.
I think he's happy to come home. So I'll give you that as well. I don't think he will. I just like to stir the pot a little bit, and you never know what's going to happen. But speaking of coming home, corruption picking Marco Edward Horick. I like that for this pick. I think he's a solid player. I've always thought he's an underrated player. I think if he gets more opportunities, he could show more. If there's another horror free for all, he definitely showed his wares in that. I do like this. I like Marco Edward Horick. I think at this round, at this point, good pickup for corruption as well. This is solid go. Hopefully he'll continue. Anything to say about that, Kelsey?
Nope, just that I agree. I think that's his home. I think he fits perfect in corruption with the dynamic, and he's great with Shannon. Having talked with him like that guy knows more. Like we said, there are more things than I've ever forgotten. Like he's forgotten more things about movies than I remember because he'll talk about like old artistic German films with us, and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but you clearly know what you're talking about, and that's fascinating. So excited. I like him as a character. I like him in teams, especially. So excited to see him.
Lacey's a mile of Thomas Harper version. That's good. I appreciate
We'll
that.
just be buying each other's merch, Lacey. That's how that's going to work. My wife, I told Lacey this at the end of the draft, but I was like, my wife is a bigger fan of you than she is of me already. And that says something. I was like, you wouldn't buy like a Thomas Harper t-shirt? She was like, well, you live here. Like, I don't need to. No, it's not going to happen. But you tell me when Lacey goes up. Yeah, I can't get rid of you. Like,
I will say, Greg, thanks for the super chat from Shug behind the Let's Get Ready Network account there. Harper is awesome. Cannot wait to see him play. Me too.
I appreciate
me too. So, all right, going back, we had corruption. Joseph Scrimshaw. We were talking about that aspect of it. The biggest thing is whether he's going to play and how long he's going to play. If there is 2 tournaments, and he gets to the last tournament, it might be a way to pull up. He's definitely a solid player, that's for sure. He's definitely one of the best players that are the old school, the veterans of the Star Wars League. I want to see him continue. But we already discussed that, so I think we should probably move on. Swag, Vinny Mancuso going to Swag. I liked Vinny in the dungeon last year. I don't know how much of a shot he got really to prove himself. He did well enough as a 4th round pick in Swag. I think he could turn some heads possibly. He's another person that you could team up with anybody and probably have a solid team with. What do you guys think about Vinny?
I agree. I loved him in the dungeon. I do think Swag is a good alternative for his character work. I think that if he had to go anywhere else, that's a good choice. I'm interested to see his dynamic with having talked to Vinny, like his knowledge it's there. I don't feel like the games we saw him in necessarily was a good example of what he can bring to the table. So hopefully this year we'll get to see more of him. It'll be exciting.
Nice. Real quick, so I throw out there, yes. I want to see IG teams and Star Wars teams. I think eventually we will get there. Eventually we get bigger. But I love the idea.
We've got enough players for it now.
Absolutely. Yep. We have enough players now. I just think we need more questions. PJ, good luck to you, PJ. You love PJ Campbell on this channel. I know that much. So, all right, we got the start with Felix Moret. I don't know much about him. I know that he's a good player. I don't know if I'm supposed to say this publicly or not. I don't know if this was behind the scenes or not, but Barbarian did say he liked him a lot and was looking at him to draft him before he got taken. So he's definitely someone that press the Barbarian and the dossier drink. But I like to say with that kind of background, I'm interested to see where he's going to go with the Stars. Again, with that kind of manager, Roxy has a hands-on approach. It could be wonders for a rookie. I think Roxy could be a really solid rookie manager of rookies, so to speak. Any thoughts on Felix, guys?
Nope, I'm not sure much about him. So I'm excited to see what he can bring to the table.
Okay, fair enough. Speaking of another rookie, I do want to mention also next guy, Tyler Rubin from the Finstock Exchange. Again, I talked to Barbarian. This guy, he came on the Gucciverse last night, and I loved his character quite a bit. His name is Ty. He called himself the Tyrant. He had this big scarf. He's this arrogant type character, fit in very well at the Finstock Exchange. I know he's teamed as a friend of Barbarian. He seemed like a solid knowledge from the questions I got. I really think you guys are going to like Ty's character, and if he's as good as if he's good enough to play with a Rivalry, I think that could be a person to watch for Rookie of the Year potentially. I don't know where we're going to get from that, but so I know you guys don't know much about him, so we might move on from that as well.
Well, here's my measure for anybody in the Finstock Exchange. How many pages is his, as Gucci says it, dossier?
Well,
I'm just gonna pronounce the word like that from now on.
I think I want to change it to that too, right? It just sounds better. Dossier.
Just rolls off the tongue.
So we go back to the vets now. We go back to the vets, and Perry gets to go back home to the Quirky Mercs. Perry round 4 was surprising last year. She didn't have she kind of left the league for a bit. She came back. She took care of Mike. She went against Mike, took Riley. I like where she is in round 4. I think she could be a solid teams player. She showed that with the witching power. What are your thoughts on Perry coming back at that lane? Chelsea, you frozen?
Yeah.
Chelsea's now frozen. Well,
Right.
There you go. Now you're back.
Can you hear me? Okay. I would say I love Perry. I think if anyone is the epitome of a quirky merc, it's Perry. I think that I can see her everywhere, but yeah, I feel like that's like her home. That's a perfect place for her. And so I'm excited to see her dominate this season because I feel like she did so great last season, and it's good to have her back. I'm excited. Have her back on the
Nice. Really?
I mean, she played really well in the singles tournament. She had that big win against Mike. It's always a question of availability with Perry because she does so many things, and she has. I feel like she's in every movie space. So, like, we'll see. I guess.
Yeah. All right.
We know that horror's there. We know that new releases is there. Like, that's her bread and butter. That's her. She dominates new releases. She dominates in horror. So.
Good call. Good call. Thomas, another one of your den mates now, Jader Paramo. Thoughts on him? Did you get a chance to talk to him yet?
I will say it this way. Jader and I haven't talked one-on-one, but Jader's been very active. Like the faction has already come together. We've already got plans in place that are all highly classified, need to know. But Jader's been very vocal already. I know, like, this much I'll say. I said at the last minute I was doing an interview. He hopped on. Like, he probably had better things to do, but he hopped on the interview. He, like, got in the chat, supporting a faction mate. That tells you all you need to know. I've been impressed top to bottom with all of our picks. He's right there in there. So I don't think there's a weak point in our draft.
I agree. He was a solid player last year, and I'm happy to see him continue. I think he's a good fit for them this year. Actually, who he's going to team with? Maybe to be Jader and Peggy together at that point. It could be a nice team. We have 3 solid teams that way if that's the way it goes. That's a pretty stacked roster. You have 3 solid teams. So
watch out.
Yep.
Never know. Yes.
We need to see something from Brother Lomas ASAP.
Well, all I know is that Christian is not allowing him to go on the after shows. I'll put that right out there. He's supposed to be on our after show at one point, and then also I got word that he was not going to be on our show. I said, "Oh, okay." I mean, that guy, it makes sense. This kind of guy you want to debut on the Schmoedown itself. Leave a little bit of mystery for him.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, I'll touch base on the Juice's guy, Jacob Wittenman. Round 4. I was surprised at how high he went, but against the nature of the rookies getting all taken that much. I love the Keytar action from Juice. Juice's Keytar is like soothing to my soul. So if we're going to get more Juice action with Jacob Wittenman, I am all in. And I hope we're going to have a match against Jesse Swift soon because that seems to be the rivalry that's been building.
Yep. It's there. They're ready for it. That'll be an interesting match. I'm super proud of Jacob getting to hang out with him on some streams like that. I know he's super excited, super passionate about IG and Star Wars. Super proud of the Juice because I know he did everything he could to help get his guys some attention. So I was super excited to hear him get called.
No one had a bigger advocate of a player than Jacob Wittenman. Juice is even involved. He's actually going to be involved now with him because he was that heavily going for it. So I'm all for it. All right, let's see. We discussed Whitney already. This is actually the next big thing we should talk about here. In round 5, the dungeon picks Chris Jericho. Shocking the world, shocking Roxy, shocking everybody involved. Of course, today we found out how much it shocked Jericho, and Jericho has stated on Twitter, no Roxy equals no Jericho. Thoughts on that?
personally, I think Jericho is a great fit for the dungeon. I don't follow wrestling. I only know Jericho strictly through Schmoedown, but just from his personality and the little things I know, him and Kaiser together, I think would be just bomb. I think it would be great. However, I do appreciate his loyalty to Roxy. That shows that they did really truly last season. I could see the dungeon and Roxy trying to do a trade to get Jericho who Roxy trade for him. Because I mean, she didn't draft him high. Clearly, she didn't rank him high in her priorities. Which who on the lower end of her roster would would Kaiser be willing to trade for? Like, I don't know.
Well, it could be perhaps that she didn't think anyone would have the cojones to do it. Maybe that's why she was going to pick him to the end. She figured that, we know that Jericho's looking to sign with me. I could take him 12th, and no one's going to do anything about it, So, but obviously Kaiser said, "Nah, I'm going to step in on that." Kaiser being a big wrestling guy, of course. Billy, what are your thoughts?
I think that if anybody could convince someone to, come with them and leave their feelings behind, it's Kaiser. Kaiser could talk to, talk anybody out of anything. I feel like that's his MO. That's his moxie. That's what he can do. I also agree that they would be a great fit. Kaiser obviously is a huge wrestling guy, a huge rock fan. That's Chris Jericho, bread and butter. So I hope he can do it. And I think he has time to do it because I don't know. I think Jericho would be more of a later in the year kind of deal, kind of like last year. So we'll see, though. I don't know. I do like the pick. Go ahead, Thomas.
No, what did Christian call it last night? The most boneheaded move in Schmoedown Draft history. If I'm Roxy, I'm taking a hard, and it sounds like this is the approach she's taking, is a hardline one. Like, well, good on you. You drafted a dead piece of weight, and it seems like Jericho is content to play that role and force a trade. And if I'm Roxy, I'm not giving any value, not because I don't value Jericho, but because I know that Kaiser needs points out of a roster spot, and having somebody that's just not playing, for whatever reason, isn't a good mixture. So, if I'm Roxy, I'm like, he's going to take something over just a big fat zero for the year.
I will say I like the ballsiness of the strategy there. Like Kaiser's like, let's take him, see what happens. Because Kaiser's a big wrestling guy. Maybe he takes him to the idea of trading him back to Roxy. I mean, that was the idea. Roxy calling the bluff. All I gotta say is, and Seven says dumb decision. Roxy's not going to trade, and Jericho won't play. Jericho's going to play. Christian is not going to let Jericho not play. And here's where it is. And a lot of people complain, well, you shouldn't be able to pick your way. This is where we have the league as a sport, and we're going more towards a sport, but there is still the aspect of the sports entertainment value aspect of it. So when you have a chairman that's going to step in, he's going to step in, grease the wheels, and go, let's see what we can do to make this trade happen and try to solve it. He'll mediate. Something's going to have to go break down, and I think Kaiser will be back with Roxy at some point. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I have no doubt that Christian's not going to step back and go, all right, well, we're just going to have Chris Jericho lead then, I guess. No, that's not going to happen. So he'll be there some way.
That's a very good point.
I think it's got to happen. I'm trying to pull back a little bit of the statue, but it is. That's what he said. I know that's what she said. We'll have to see. But let's see how Christian is going to convince some people as well. So I think we'll see something happen. But all right, moving on.
It's not like they need, if they don't trade Chris Jericho, suddenly they're up Schitt's Creek or something like that. They still have a massive roster at the dungeon.
Oh yeah.
They're not hurting for players. They're not going to be hurting for points like they were last year.
I don't think Chris Jericho was in their plans as far as being a significant part of the roster anyway. He's only going to play a couple matches a year anyway. But I will say also, the people who are complaining about Jericho not being, what, this happens in sports too. Eli Manning got drafted, and then he was going to get drafted, and he wasn't going to play where he's going to play. He organized his way somewhere else. It's part of the league. It's going to happen.
John,
yeah, absolutely. All right, moving on. We got Paul Walter Hauser going to Usual Suspects. I'm glad to see him get picked. I have another celebrity. I'm interested to see his knowledge. Stingray. I hope that's his nickname. I hope he comes in with a Stingray goatee. I'd love to see it happen. Anything to say about him, or should we move on?
Just that I love him, and I'm super excited to see him in the Schmoedown.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of him as an actor. So just excited.
He's going to be playing for the Suspects. So are you going to get his autograph too, Thomas, from somebody potentially?
Of course. Molly? Yeah, of course.
Or not Molly. You should talk to somebody like Marie or somebody.
If he had only acted in I, Tonya, that would have been enough for me to like be a permanent fan of his if he never did a single other project.
He's so good in that.
Brilliant.
Love it. Well, we're back to the den, and someone else who's been on our chat all night. Lacey. I love seeing her get drafted. We had a great time with her. I love Star Wars News Net. I actually use that as my Star Wars news source. So what were your thoughts when you saw it? I mean, at this point, I gotta be honest, like during the draft, did she talk to you at all before about joining you, or is this kind of a surprise to you at this point? Did you see it potentially happening? What were your thoughts?
No, so Lacey was very very nice, like DM'd me and just said that they were running a live stream of reactions, and that they like blew off the roof when I went, or just, they're very supportive of all Star Wars players, but it was very gracious. I didn't think that there was a chance in hell that I would get a chance to play with her, much less any of the three Resistance folks. I will tell you that from the very first interview, and I've told her this directly, but I was consistently impressed with her. And if I could have handpicked a teammate, particularly amongst the three of them, and this is no insult to John or James, it would have been Lacey. And I am beyond excited to play with her. The fact that she comes from a mentality of having been consistently underrated, like folks just expect on some level from some sexist angle that she doesn't know Star Wars or underestimate her. She walks in with a big chip on her shoulder, and for good reason. I think she's a great fit. Even if I wasn't on the team for Kate, I think that's a great selection there. But I think she's going to catch some people off guard. She is hungry. She is good. She knows Star Wars as much as anybody in detail. And if you've heard just even a single episode of her podcast, Dyad, yeah, that's right, one word, Dyad, you know this. I don't have to tell you this. The proof is out there. And I'm telling you that I'm glad that this rule against faction mates battling each other exists, because I don't want to go against Lacey. I'm happy to have her as a teammate, though. And we're already collaborating. I won't say how, but Lacey and I are already collaborating. We're making moves. We're going to be ready for whoever our opponents are.
All right. I like the sound of that. I'm a big fan of Lacey, especially after getting a chance to interview her.
Rightfully so.
Awesome. So definitely a good pick up for the den.
Let's see. Also, I don't know if anybody saw it, but they put it on Twitter. There's a video of Lacey, and it's her reactions to Kate's picks, and Lacey is just like falling in love with Kate as she like through the draft. And then when she gets picked by Kate, she's so happy. It's so great. I loved it so much.
It's amazing.
Lacey already a star.
Makes me fall in love with that. I love that. So I guess I am loving the den at this point, man. I'm talking all dungeon, but I do love the den. I gotta admit,
it's gonna be a fun. It's gonna be a fun faction. Like if you told me that this was going to be my faction and the folks that I would be playing beside, I'd be like, there's no way I'm that lucky. There is no way I'm going to end up with like some duds and some people that just don't like me, or I just don't mesh with them. But it couldn't be farther from the truth. I'm really excited.
Excellent stuff. I can't wait. All right. Next up, Quirky Marks. Beth May, another person we had on our list. She actually is one of the ones who, well, yes, there it is. Kate is a queen, according to Lacey. Yes. There you go. But Beth May made her rounds just kind of like Jesse Swift did. She just was the original Facebook video post guy. She just kind of threw her hat in the ring and said, "This is who I am." And my God, is there a better fit than Beth May with the Quirky Mercs? To me, that just seemed like it was a perfect fit. She's that quirky person herself. I think she's got a great personality. If her knowledge base can match her personality, she's going to be a long-time Schmoedown player. Even if she does have a connection to Frankie Numbers, Frank the Slug, as I call him. What do you guys? So are you guys as big a fan of Beth as I am?
Yeah, I love Beth. I think she's great. I like her like story and things like that too. She's a very interesting person. I used to play D&D. It's been a while, but I've actually been checking out her podcast where she does voice acting in a D&D game and things like that. And she's a very talented person. So if her knowledge is, and even like 50% of her talent in other arenas, she's going to be crazy good in Schmoedown. So I'm excited.
Very much so. Very much so. Billy, any thoughts on Beth?
Yeah, I mean, it's she seems like she's very and hopefully just as knowledgeable. And I like coy with her because coy is coy.
That personality seems like he managed to through every round pick up folks that just fit the bill, and I assume can only hope that he'll help shape Dimalanta and sort of meet the vibe of their team. But this seems like a perfect. You just look at her Twitter feed and you're like, if you pick a faction for her, you'd be like Corky Mercs all day long.
Yeah, Coy is definitely a unique individual. I always thought he's like the personal embodiment of cocaine. He's got pure adrenaline energy the whole way through. I already got Brother Lomas next, and that's what it is. He's coming to FinSock Exchange. I think that's an interesting pairing, having Gucci introduce the monk, the crazy monk. I can't wait to see that pairing together.
I mean, I love when like they pair up people who are similar, like Radis and Gucci. They go both great dynamic, but when you put people so opposite, it's almost like the Elliot Dewberry and Shannon effect, where like it's such awful like weird mix. It somehow is brilliant, and I kind of anticipate that's what this is going to be. Like it's such a weird matchup. I think it's going to be amazing.
I could totally picture Gucci going out. I think it's called a thurible, like the like if you're Catholic and you're in mass, it's that like metallic object on a chain that has the smoke. I could totally see Gucci like splurging for some like ridiculous over the top like golden thing and have smoke pouring out when we're back to live matches, or even his house like from the video, just like completely overdoing it. Yeah, I'm very curious to see how this one works out.
Yeah, I
There's another Catholic thing. You bless everyone with holy water, and it's a little like metal thing. They like, but I just imagine Gucci doing, but it's vodka instead of holy water.
This is top shelf. You better not waste it.
Very much so.
Not a drop.
All right, moving on then to next. We got the Stars picked Ken Jack from Barstool, a 4-division player, supposedly. A little controversy in the community over these picks from Barstool that Roxy took, and hopefully there's some communication going on. Everything can be worked out. I don't know much about them as people, but we'll have to see what's going to go down there. Kelsey, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I'm not a sports person. I had no idea what Barstool was. I never heard of it before, but then I started seeing people say things on Twitter. So I spent a good several hours today doing research and looking things up, and I hope things are going to be addressed because I'm slightly concerned. But that's all I'll say. So I'm hoping there's good conversations happening behind the scenes to figure some stuff out.
They have a rabid. Just Barstool in general has a rabid fan base that isn't always. I think they're very defensive of those personalities, and I'm not singling anybody out in terms of Schmoedown competitors because I don't know these folks, but historically, that's been an issue, and I hope these guys, these folks only bring positivity to the league and good vibes to the Stars.
That's what I'm hoping so too. I very much so hope so. Let's hope that that works out. Billy, any thoughts before we move on? Or
I don't really know the Barstool guys. I don't really have I'm not in their fan base. I don't know. I never really heard of.
You're not
Barstool.
a
Stoolie. That's right.
Yeah, no. I'm not a stool. They're not called stool pigeons. How is that not the name of their fan base? Like that's too on the nose. No. And again, there was a Twitter thing last night. I say you could probably look through like just about anybody's Twitter and find something you don't like. But if it's an issue, if it's like you don't have to look very hard, then maybe we do need to have some conversations. But
and
I would
Lacey,
hope that they get
go ahead.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Tom.
No, Lacey pointed out in the chat, and she pointed this out in pre-draft interviews that Resistance broadcast squared off against their folks in Star Wars trivia, and just like Bane versus Batman, like body, broke their back.
Broke his back.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
you were just introduced to the darkness. You were born in it.
Yes.
All right. Well, like I said, that's the next two picks for Roxy, both those players, and again, conversation is being had. Hopefully, it gets addressed. Nothing more to convince on that point. Moving on, Swag had Haley Fouch, which is a great pickup for them. I think Haley Fouch is an underrated player. She has some nerve sometimes, so hopefully, I think Winston helped that out tremendously. And hopefully, I don't know where she'll be as far as maybe teaming up with somebody. She might be someone to team up with a Zipper or somebody like a Vinny Mancuso potentially, maybe even Jen Kemp who book later on. I'd like to see her. I want to see more of her. I think she's got a great potential. She seems to have a great, strong knowledge base, a few weaknesses. But I love her. I love it. And I'm glad to see she's back in the league. And I think Winston's great for her.
Yeah, I agree. I'm sad that the team got broken up, but I feel like if she's going anywhere, Swag is the next best to Quirky Mercs for her. I think you're right. Winston's going to be a good cheerleader for her. Keep that confidence up. I think it's a good fit.
Anything to add, guys?
I think Haley. I'm a big Haley fan. She was really impressive at the live event when she faced off against Ethan. She had a rough first round, which was clearly like her nerves, and then she settled in and she went basically toe to toe with Ethan and out. And like if most players where the score was the end of round one would have gotten knocked out. So I think she could fit in with just about anybody. She clearly has a huge horror knowledge. She knows about Inner Geekdom stuff, and with Inner Geekdom now coming into singles and teams, that helps out a lot. And she's also the kind of person, she's just a super nice person. She's like one of the nice people.
Yeah.
But I also think she has a little bit of an edge, which could like Winston could find that and maybe like push that, like push you have an edge. Like you're not just the nice,
Right.
lollipops and sunshine,
I like that. I like that angle. Anything from you, Thomas? Do you know anything about it?
Keep on rolling.
All right, let's go to the next one. One of our favorite players in the draft, one of our favorite players on Call to Action. We're big fans of him. Suit Up Sully, Sean Sullivan, taken way later than he should have done. I think this guy is a ball of fire. I think that he's got a lot to prove. That he wants to prove after last year. I've talked to him behind the scenes. He's a strong addition. I don't root for corruption because I love Shannon, but I think it's been my lifelong goal to always beat up Mike Kalinowski as far as I can't ever root for Mike Kalinowski. I love Boss Green, but it's just like in the Schmoedown, I always root against him. But Sully definitely has to make me love going for corruption as it is at this point because she's great. He joins Collins, Mirrors, all I love. I love Sean Sullivan. I hope he gets a good shot this year, especially as almost like an overlooked person in a way. Because he had the vets that were mentioned, like the Alex Damon, the Laura Kelly, Elias Cabrera, you have the Dragon Con players coming in, you have the Star Wars Newsnet coming in. Sully is in this weird in-between position where he has more experience with the game. I want to see how he does. I have great high hopes for him. I know he's studying his ass off. I know that much. So what are your thoughts, Thomas, on Sean?
Sean, I would lump right there with Scrimshaw in terms of a guy who is uber talented, but the dice haven't always rolled his way. And that's like indicative of how the Star Wars League has gone, that you can be somebody that knowledgeable and it just, I guarantee you he's sitting there playing his matches and in the, whether he's, elements where he doesn't get a chance to steal or in the other two rounds, he knows every one of his opponent's answers, and it's just the one or the two that happen to slip in there and catch him that make the difference. And that's sort of the story of some of these matches. And, I think if circumstances were different, he might have made a run very deep into the tournament. But, that it's, he's an example that if it can happen to him, if it can happen to Scrimshaw, it can happen to anybody. You just depends on how the cookie crumbles.
100%, and hopefully.
But how he fell this late and how Shannon was able to pick him up is a loss to him. And I'm not second guessing any of Kate's picks, but for other managers to let him slip this fall and let him go to Shannon, I think that was an oversight.
Agreed.
Yeah. I'm excited to wear my corruption shirt, drink some whiskey out of a champagne glass, and just cheer him on. So it's gonna be good.
All right, let's move on past Sean now. Corruption gets Jacob London, who fell. Considering how high the rookies have gone, it kind of surprised me that Jacob London fell so low comparatively, because he made a good showing on backstage. Like I said, he was definitely one of those names you heard a lot. But yet here he is, round 6. This could be a steal for Corruption. Maybe this is the Adam Collins player that is on the team now with Adam Collins. Thoughts about that, guys?
I'm super excited to get to see him play. I sadly was sick, so I missed the interview with him, but he seems super passionate, down, super motivated to do whatever he needs to do for whatever fan that drafted him. I think coming Shannon will develop a very good relationship, and she'll tell him what he needs to do. She'll have advice. I look forward to seeing what he does. I'm interested to see also character-wise what he's going to be like under the rule of Shannon.
I think the one manager who's proven that they know how to pick rookies is Shannon, because she picked Adam Collins last year and he won a title. And it says something, I think, that he's the only rookie that Shannon picked. So,
right. So
Jacob was super impressive to me in his. Yeah, I'm right with you, Billy. He was super impressive to me in the interviews that I saw. I don't think I saw a more humble person coming in. This is a player with his movie head screwed on straight. He's got a super deep knowledge on that end, but he's also got his rookie head screwed on straight. And I think his game tape in terms of interviews should be like an instructional one-on-one video or 101 level video for anybody that in the future is coming into a draft as a rookie. I think it's surprising to me that he fell this late in the draft. And I hate that he fell to Shannon in many ways, but I think it's going to prove to be a very, very savvy pick. And it's my bedtime here, but the last comment that I'll make is not one that was drafted, but if there's a manager out there that's looking to make a pickup in the future, maybe fill a roster spot that comes open later, James Baney, Lacey and John's podcasting partner, how he went undrafted is a complete bafflement to me. And that's not anything against anybody that's sitting with a roster spot right now, because everybody earned those spots. But James is lights out. And, even if he's just a sole Star Wars division player at the start, I think any faction that ends up picking him up out of a need is going to be very well served by him. And, he's a loyal guy. He's pretty deadly accurate when it comes to trivia. He's taken out these Barstool guys with ease. And so I hope he ends up on the Den, but I don't know if we'll have that opportunity, but my fingers are crossed for that. But
what's the chance he might even debut in the first class league and then get called on midseason?
Very true.
The spot opens up. That's going to be good. I know he's mentioned on Twitter that he might be interested in doing that. So hopefully that'll some way he'll get to the league. I'm sure at some point. I think it's inevitable. We'll get there. I know, Thomas, you have to leave. And I really
thank you so much for having me on. This has been a blast.
Thank you.
You're welcome anytime. I love hanging out here.
Yeah. I have a blast just hanging out. We could be talking about we talk Star Wars sometimes, just bullshit for a couple hours.
Yeah.
I love it.
I will do some specials on Twitch or something. I think we'll do that. We'll just have to shoot the shit about Star Wars. No problem.
Count me in. Well, thanks. This has been a blast. Thanks so much for having me.
Take care, man.
Thanks.
Have a good night, man. Bye. All right. Bye. Let's get the brand in there. Well, it is getting late for us.
I just want to
But you know
piggyback off what Thomas said about James Baney. Most Star Wars competitors love all of Star Wars, and they read everything they can, and they get their hands on everything. James Baney said in his interview, he just follows the canon stuff. Like, he follows the movies and the most recent stuff. So his knowledge is more focused on the stuff that the Schmoedown asks about. So,
and I'll throw it out there as well, is that sometimes things have changed from Legends to when Disney bought it. So things like we've been
Exactly.
like Thomas mentioned before about the change of the books and everything else. So if this guy only knows the canon, he might not get mixed up in his head some Legends things.
That's
like
true.
some old guys like I do.
Exactly.
Like I would have, because I'm an old guy who read Star Wars. But you know what? We're getting a little late here. It's kind of we've never really went in depth on things. Then we're going to do a little more of a highlights of the rest of the pick. We'll kind of talk about mention the names and if there's anything specifically instead of going one by one. So the rest of the round, we had Jen Kemp to swag. Jeff Lowe already talked about. Rick Radis, we kind of made mention. I want to highlight Rick Radis. I think he fits in perfectly with the exchange. I think we'll do this. I'll go through that, and we can each have our own highlights. Rick Radis is a perfect guy for the exchange. I think he's a party guy. I love having him on the show. I can't wait for him to continue. I want to see what his trivia level is like. Barbarian drafted him, so that's a good sign. I think he probably has a good knowledge base. Josh Horowitz went to the Mercs. I don't know anything about him, unfortunately, really much. I know he's got some knowledge, supposedly, but who knows? David Del Rio to the Den. David Del Rio could be a sleeper. I know his biggest issue has always been scheduling, but when he has had matches, he's made some good mention. Or he's going to be a good name for himself. He didn't really lose by much. He had some great knowledge. Hopefully that will be good for the Den. Frankie Alvarez from the Usual Suspects. Love Frankie. I'm so happy he made it to the league. He was one of my favorite people we've had on so far. He's actually, I'll announce right now, he's going to be on next week, on next Saturday, to talk about his being drafted with the Usual Suspects. We'll go from there. And finally, Adam Witt to the Dungeon. Love me some Adam Witt. Shocked he went so low. Again, I think he's one of the victims, as I call him, victims of the rookie explosion. Three-way player. Even though he hasn't won a match yet, he's always been in every match, so his wins will come. Go back to the Dungeon. He fits in well with that, with Kaiser and the crew. Kelsey, what were your thoughts about the rest of this round?
Yeah, the one that stuck out to me the most was Adam Witt. He is one of my favorite Schmoedown. I will watch everything he does. So I think
Does Kelsey's internet. Hold on, Kelsey. Give it a second, Kelsey. Looks like your internet is also a victim of the rookie explosion. Maybe we'll get Billy's thoughts first until Kelsey gets back.
Okay.
My thoughts. I'm super happy Jen Kemp got picked. I love Jen Kemp. She's an amazing person. She's been around the Schmoedown as long as there's been a Schmoedown. So, I mean, she knows the game in and out. I think she used to write for the Schmoedown. So big ups to her. Brother Rick Radis has been talked about a lot. And I think we're all in the same boat with Adam Witt. Like, I think it was in round 3 we were on the watch along, and we were like, "Why has no one picked Adam Witt yet?" Because again, three divisions, perfect for any team, fits the Dungeon great. I love it, great pick. Probably my most value of any pick in the draft.
Very nice, very nice. Kelsey, you back? You have some internet? You're back with your internet? Yeah, I see. Yeah, so go ahead with your notes.
Okay, just that Adam Witt's one of my favorite Schmoedown personalities. Record aside, I don't care. I just want to see him do as many matches as possible. The Dungeon is the home for him, and so I'm super happy he went back. But he should have been drafted sooner. Like, he really should have.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on anybody else, or you want to move on to the next round?
Well, let's move. I like Frankie Alvarez too, but let's move on.
Okay. Round 7, we had the Dungeon taking John Hoey. Usual Suspects taking Paige for Betty. The Den taking Jess Schloth, who was in our chat earlier. Kelsey's got that coin internet tonight. That's okay. We'll get there. Quirky Mercs take Greg Alba. The Fence Hockey Machine take Jeffrey Kahn. Stars round out the Family 4, Christina Vassallo. Swag getting Jonathan Harris. Corruption getting Clee Wiggins. I'll do my quick summary. John Hoey, the Dungeon, is a perfect fit. He's a wrestling guy, a Star Wars guy. I loved when we interviewed John Hoey alongside Lacey and James. And John Hoey, he's one of my new favorite players, I gotta tell you. I think he's going to fit in with Kaiser perfectly. Can't wait to see that. Paige for Betty, also going to make her appearance on Call to Action next week. We didn't get a chance to see her, interview her before. We're going to interview her now that she got drafted. She definitely called out Bateman. That's an interesting way to go about first shots there. We got Jess, who was on Call Action, I did like Jessica Schloth. She's a very, very nice girl. She had a lot of things to say. Hopefully, she'll make an impression on the Den. Greg Alba, I love seeing the Real Rejects as well. So I'm always happy to have him back, and he fits in with the Mercs. He always did fit with the Mercs. I think it's perfect. Jeffrey Kahn, young player in the exchange. He appeared on the YouTubers last night. Very knowledgeable for his age. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Polyama too. Actually, he's got that same kind of vibe to him as far as his knowledge goes. Hopefully, that's the way it's going to continue. We'll see. Christina V, loved her interviewing her. She had a lot of time. I think she's going to fit in perfectly with Roxy. I always saw her as Corruption or Roxy. She's kind of she's that. I think she's got the heel thing down. She'll be a good edge there. Jonathan Harris, got to see him come back. I did love the fact that the professor introduced him to the team. The swag. I always partially, being a big wrestling guy, I know some people don't like it. I love the three faces of Foley. I always want to see the delinquent with Polayama and then the professor resurrected to team up with Jonathan Harris. I know that gets a little dicey when a tournament's involved there, but overall, as far as a humor thing go, I'd love to see it myself. But we'll go from there. Cleo Wiggins, another good pickup. What do you guys think about this round?
The one highlight I would like to say is about Christina. I think Christina V is a perfect fit for the Stars. I think Roxy is going to do wonders with her personality-wise. Their banter. Plus, I always like it when really two cool chicks are working together and things like that. Something like I like my daughter and I to watch. It's like, yeah, see what you could do. Like, look at those awesome ladies. So that was super excited about that one. And then Clee Wiggins, I really liked Clee. I'm super happy she's back on Corruption. I like her and Shannon together a lot, so I was excited to see her return.
Nice. Billy, what about you?
This round, I mean, we're getting in the 7th round. I think John Hoey is a steal in this round. The fact that he was still on the board boggles my mind. I tweeted out, I think that all the flashy Star Wars players went early. John Hoey could win the title, and he got drafted in the 7th round. Jessica Sloth, I think she loves the Schmoedown, so there's the passion there for the Schmoedown, and I really liked her in our interviews. She seems like she has a lot of really strengths that a lot of other people might not have, so it's a chance to catch people with the wheel and things like that. Greg Alba, I mean, come on. Let's be honest. It's Greg Alba. Amazing.
Right.
We haven't got to it yet, but later the Real Rejects were kept together. Shannon did not break them up, which I know a lot of people were worried about. But yeah, that's
the last thing. Yeah,
I would have loved that. To be perfectly honest.
Yeah,
I love the Real Rejects, but I also love the drama behind splitting teams up that people love. So,
it's delicious.
It's delicious.
I think Clee Wiggins is very knowledgeable, and it didn't necessarily shine through last season. So I think that's a really good value pick for Shannon right there.
I mean, she only lost to the Barbarian. I mean, that's not exactly a mark on the record. You're losing to someone like that, right? So
yeah.
All right, let's see. Moving on to
and I think Barbarian threw a perfect game in that match.
Yeah,
I think so.
Number 8. Round number 8. Corruption gets James White. Swag gets Bradley Tingle. The Stars, Brittany Young. Pintock Exchange, Kim Taylor Foster. The Quirky Merc, Sabrina Ramirez. The Den, Rachel Silvestrini. The Usual Suspects, Nikki Dimalanta. The Dungeon, John Flickinger. Throw through that quickly. Corruption, James White, one of those. Again, he's one of the victims, as I call him, the victims of the Adam Collins effect. The fact that he went so low despite he had a solid showing last year. I mean, he didn't win any titles, but he was 1-1. He beat Frank Moran. He lost to William Bibiani. There's no shame in losing to the Beast. So I think the fact that he went this low, it's definitely a factor of what was going on with the rookies. I think it's a great pickup at round number 8. That's good for them. Bradley Tingle, don't much about. Brittany Young, good to see. I'm glad to see what she was the Stars. I think if she wasn't going back to the Dungeon, Roxy's a good fit for her. Although maybe that's part of the Dungeon deal that'll go down. Maybe she'll go back to the Dungeon for Chris Jericho in a way. Seems like it might make a lot of sense.
That would make more sense, probably.
To a degree. Kim Taylor Foster, I just want to shout her out real quick. We had her on our European edition of C2A, the rookie special. Loved her. Loved her so much. I had these conversations before and after. She wrote a book on the Matrix. I'm going to get it. She has great knowledge. I think if you haven't watched that episode, go watch that episode. I'm plugging my own show now, Billy. We're plugging our own show, so that's what we do sometimes too. But I think she's a great pickup for the exchange, and I hope that she sticks around and has some great matches. Sabrina Ramirez going with the Mercs. I love Sabrina Ramirez. I'm glad to see she got picked. Kind of had a raw deal last year. She kind of had some, some oops at the beginning. Oopsies at the beginning. She kind of got some toxic people kind of jumping all over her. I think she deserves another shot. I think with her, with Koi, that could be a great, because Koi is one of the best cheerleaders there is. That's a great fit for her rather than being Hamaguchi, to be honest with you. The Dan Richards Silver String, one of the biggest one of the biggest victims. You think she came over the edge last year after getting picked in the 6th round? How does she fall to this far, to the 8th round? Was it 8th round for her? Yeah, 8th round.
Yeah.
That is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Well, I'll give you a shout out that too. Last thing I'll say, Nikki Dimalanta. Interesting Twitter stuff. I think this might have been what I was talking about before. She made reference to maybe some promises being made and not happening. So I don't know if somebody else was supposed to pick her up. I don't know, but she ended up going to the Usual Suspects. Hopefully, I get to see her. She is quirky. I always think she does belong along with Koi, but having her in the Usual Suspects is good too. I'm glad to have Dimmy in the league. That's all I have to say about that.
Agreed.
And then Flick Pick. I don't know much about him as far as his knowledge goes. He's got, but interested to see what he can do with the dungeon as well. What are you guys' thoughts on anything in that round 8?
I'm super excited to see Sabrina come back, and I think she will fit really well with Quirky Burks. I love that she's got a new name. She posted on Twitter, the Siren, which I think is awesome. I think reinventing herself after leaving the Finstock Exchange, because just that this last season for her, I don't feel like worked out very well. I think this year she's going to shine, especially with the power couple like storyline thing they're doing and stuff. I'm super stoked to see what happens with her this season. And then Rachel, the whole entire time on the stream, I'm like, why has nobody drafted Rachel yet? Did I miss it? I was convinced at one point that I must have missed when someone did it earlier because I could not believe it hadn't happened yet. So, I mean, Kate, you got a steal in the 8th round with her, but I feel like I really feel Rachel should have been drafted sooner, wherever she would have gotten drafted. Just, but yeah, that was my big polls.
Billy.
The 8th round is like weird. It's kind of like the round where like all of the people that we knew before, like in the Schmoedown, suddenly just like fell into the 8th round. Like James White went from the 2nd round last year to the 8th round this year. Sabrina was a mid-season addition. Sabrina like had some missed opportunities because I think last year at the end of the year she was supposed to be teamed with the Barbarian.
She would have done
it just didn't happen because the Founding Fathers choked away some titles. And then Rachel Silverstream is last year famously Kate said that she didn't draft Rachel because she had her name on her list, but that like she lost that sheet from her list that had Rachel's name on it. Did she lose it again? Like what's going on here? Like but that's a steal for the Den to get Rachel in the 8th round is fantastic. Dimalanta, coming into Star Wars, she's probably helping. She's been helping Andrew Dimalanta study probably for her whole life. So, as long as they've been married. So I'm sure she's. Right. It's kind of like the same thing with Molly Damon. Like you assume the knowledge is there, if nothing else, through osmosis. But so hopefully, I love Nikki. I wish she'd gotten picked by the Quirky Mercs because she is the super quirky person. But Usual Suspect, she gets her shot. So.
I love it.
Sam's kind of quirky too.
Yeah, I get that. I'll give it that. I just want to point that out there. Yes, I know somebody, Lon being the professor at Pure One Time Only Theater from WF. I don't when I pitch the double angle, I don't think it's going to be something that's going to be an all season thing. But I would actually be shocked if we didn't get a one time only Lon and John reunion where Lon comes out as the professor for like a one time only.
Doesn't like to do the one time only things though, so I don't think we'll get that.
I wouldn't be surprised. I gotta tell you, he's something about live event. He'd be a great opening for a live event kind of thing. I could see it happening as like an opening thing for something. I don't know what to say, but anyway, moving on to the 9th round there, the 9th and final round. The Dungeon picked Chris Van Vliet. Suspects picked Doug Benson, Quirky Mercs, John Humphrey, Finstock Exchange, Taylor Robinson, Swag, Frank Moran, Corruption, Claudia Dolph, also Corruption, Elliot Dewberry. Interesting things here. Chris Van Vliet is a known wrestling commentator. podcast. He talks about wrestling a lot. Of Brad Gilmore has a lot of good things to say about him. So I guess that fits in with with Kaiser's wrestling mentality. So I don't know much more than that. Doug Benson getting another shot at a debut match with the Suspects. So hopefully we'll get to see him actually perform this year. Of course, Quirky Mercs reuniting the Real Rejects. Good on them. Since Queen Shannon is the epitome of evil, Koi is the epitome of good, keeping the Real Rejects together. Chad Robinson, she's ultimately a rookie. I know she had the one match where she had a fatal 5-way a few years back. She lost to Jared Haven. For the most part, she's been out for a while. She's almost basically a rookie at this point. But she does have some great knowledge base, according to the exchanges where in the Barbarian and the dossier. So I'm interested to see how much she's made some improvements over 3 years. She's actually, she's with Jacob London, and Jacob London has made such an impression that they're working together and they study together before getting split apart in factions. She could actually be a solid pick. I'll have to see how that goes. And finally, Frank Moran, I liked him. I think he's got solid potential. He's never exactly worked it out. I'm interested to see where it goes. And the last pick of the draft, Elliot Dewberry, of course, I'm glad to see him back too. So,
okay, ready for me? I have opinions on this one. Okay,
go ahead.
Okay, so this is not okay. I love Taylor Robinson. I think she's fantastic. I'm going to use her as a segue to talk about something else. So Barbarian talked about how she is the only person he quizzed that got 100%. The only person. Why is she drafted round 9? If that is what your dossier and your evidence and stuff is showing you. And why is the only other woman on your faction the one right before her? And I know there's arguments like that's how draft works, blah, 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 blah. But the one big aspect of the Schmoedown has always been trying to be well-rounded, inclusive, thing for everybody. I don't feel like they had to draft in the order they did to still even get the same results that they did. So even if it was totally unintentional, it is kind of a bad look because if you were already planning on drafting the 2 ladies at the end, it looks extremely reactionary. Like it looks like, oh, we're seeing the backlash on Twitter. We got to really quickly fix this. Even if that's not what happened, that is how it looked. I was very disappointed for those reasons with the Finstock Exchange draft. I truly believe there could have been women drafted up sooner and had just as great, amazing of a roster with Barbarian's effort and Barbarian's work. It just doesn't look good. I don't like using these words, but like sexism and misogyny are kind of a small overtone in geek-like communities like Star Wars and things like that. I don't want that in Schmoedown, and I don't know. That didn't feel good watching. Like I was in a Zoom call with multiple women, and we were all getting kind of annoyed.
The optics were definitely not good. I'll get the optics weren't good. I know that after seeing, again, I got to look around after, I got to look not only at the dossier, they actually showed me their draft board and how it went down. They definitely had a lot of women on their target. So, yeah, Peggy said right. They actually were picking, if Peggy hadn't been taken when she was taken, they were taking her next. I know that much is true. I know they had a number of women on their draft boards. I'm not sure why Taylor slipped this far, given that she was 100%. I'm not sure I didn't get that far into it, the Barbarian or anything like that. But I do know they had numerous women on the thing. I know definitively wasn't intentional. I don't want to accuse.
Yeah, I know it's not intentional.
Or misogyny for this. No, that's not what we're doing.
That's not what we're saying. But what I'm just saying is that is something to pay attention to how it appears to the women of your community, because it does not look good.
And that's all I've been talking about. The optics were not good. Again, but yeah, I don't necessarily think that was what they were going for, and they're definitely not a sexist team. I know that much, but
no.
It is what it is. It's, Billy, what are your any thoughts on that, Billy?
I have nothing to say. I'm not going to follow that.
Billy always with the hard-hitting news, the hard-hitting opinions. That's what we pay him for. We're getting big bucks for.
Like I just want to back one second. I just want to back. I'm not saying that anyone in the decision-making process was being sexist with that. I'm just saying I've seen people's defense, like Gucci's defense, is definitely different than other people's defense of what he did. People in the community's defense of how it went has been kind of problematic, if that makes sense. Pretty much saying, well, the women didn't deserve to be drafted that high, so that's why they drafted the like those kind of comments. Just people in the community just don't. But no, this is not about Gucci. I think it was totally an accident that it worked out that way. Just be careful.
Let's not focus on that, all right? Let's focus on what actually happens in the free agency signings and everything. You have Liz Shannon Miller signed. You have Lady Justice signed and traded for. Mara Knopik gets drafted number 1 overall. You have several women drafted into Star Wars, which, that's historically been as inclusive as the movies are. That community isn't always very inclusive. So across the board, every faction drafted have women on their rosters. We had women drafted very high. We had, the numbers aren't as high. Percentage-wise, it's not as a big jump from last year, but across the board, there were women drafted all over the board. I don't ever question somebody's drafting because they should be drafting whoever they think is the best player available. And if it just happens to be male or female, then that's what it happens to be. If that's how the numbers, it's not like Gucci drafted his roster first and then, everything else. Things just fell the way they fell. He does have 2 women on his roster. He has 2 very good women on his roster. So this thing is a non-issue for me at all. Everything else, like some other things that have been brought up, those might be issues. But as far as like the way the draft falls, again, it's like you should be drafting whoever you think is the best player available. That's the Schmoedown. Draft whoever the best player is.
But what I'm trying to say is, can't you hear how that sounds? They should draft the best people, and for the first 7 rounds, that was not winning.
Again, it just happened. It's not like it's the first 7 picks in the draft. It's pick, 5, whatever down the line. Like it's women were being drafted throughout the whole draft. Like
I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle of the thing at this point. I think there's not much more else to say about it before we get too long. Oh, Indiana, I got my.
And the other thing, as Schmoedown is done trying to be inclusive, there is still a lack of representation across the board for women. Like it's not 50-50. There are way more men in the Schmoedown than there are women currently, for whatever reason. And so it is likely that something like this is good. If you have 8 factions and you just randomly generated 8 factions of the names that are in the draft, you could easily have this happen a lot, like because of the disparity in the number of women to men are. Like, it's not like there's no way that they, especially with the Barbarian, John Roca, I'm sure they had influence on Gucci's draft, and there's no way that they're gonna like purposely not draft women. Like,
it's not like that's not what I'm saying. But like, I just want to say though, everyone that's argued with the women about this have been guys, and then the girl. This is how we feel. At least a lot of us. I'm not speaking, but like, this is just the optics has felt to the female, a portion of the female fans. So I get your statement. I get your point. I just feel like our feelings are not invalid, even if there is maybe some logic behind how it happened. It still feels icky.
I can invalidate your feelings. I'm not going to invalidate your feelings. It is. I mean, there's also other diversity in the way, but there's some aspects too. I mean, they do have an openly gay, he has an Asian as well, a person of color. So I mean, there's a lot of lack of diversity in the league overall. I think it's starting to slowly move in the right direction. It's not there yet. It's not nearly where it needs to be. But that's an interesting angle too. And I will also say, Dean, the reason why he didn't draft Laura Armalia, I think honestly speaking, part of that was the idea that he wanted to go with all rookies. That specific angle. Now, were there female rookies? Yeah, there were. It's kind of I don't know what to say about it necessarily. I will agree with Kelsey. The optics were definitely not good. I'll agree with Billy and say that I don't think it was intentionally done. So the truth is, I think there's two extremes to the situation. I mean, one, we have not extreme views, but there's extreme whether it is on one side and extreme on the other. The truth is always going to be in the middle. We should always be looking. We should always be looking to diversify on every single level, with sex, with gender, with color, with everything you can possibly do. Hopefully, this is something that we'll look in the future, and this won't be an issue as we get more and more diverse. That's what I'm hoping for. And we'll have to see what happens next year. Hopefully get more involved, and we can go from there. It won't be an issue. So, and that's the end on that. Unless you have anything further. Okay. Well, at the end of the day, that will be the end of the roster. That's an interesting question, though. JT and Lunacy up. Wow.
That would be fascinating.
I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think, but that would be interesting. I actually think we're going to get a JT. I wonder, of the three, I don't know if they publicly said whether they're going to have JT and Roka or JT and Barbarian or Roka and Barbarian. I don't know if that's going to be the case. It would be interesting to see JT and Roka given the old top 10 Patriots feud, wouldn't it? But I don't know. We'll have to see how that happens. Anyway, I think we've been here long enough. We've been through this whole roster, a whole draft, 1 through whatever the last pick was, 72. Thanks for sticking around with us. You've been with us most of the time. We had the same number of viewers. I'm so thankful you guys stuck around with us. Hopefully that'll be hopefully you enjoyed it as much as we did. Thank you so much for Thomas Harper to come on and hang out with us for a while. He actually had some great insight. He's obviously studying the league, getting more in depth of the league, because sometimes some of the rookies come in, they don't know much about the league, but he came in and hung his analysis was pretty much as good as ours. I love talking to him about it. So thank you, Thomas. I hope to have him on as well. Billy, where can you want to plug where the folks can find you, Billy?
You can find me on Twitter, as it's scrolling by here at Mr. Billy Belford. You can also find me here on Call to Action. I will be a week from Monday. I will be debuting my new show, Turn It Up to 11, where we will be counting down some of the greatest moments in Schmoedown history across various different Schmoedown-related topics. The first show is the 11 greatest moments in Schmoedown history. If you're a member of our Patreon, which you can sign up for up there, you'll be a member of our Discord, and we'll be getting some information from people on what they feel are their greatest moments that possibly influence that show, which I will just completely ignore whatever they think. And I'll be co-hosting with Paul. So, Paul, where can they find you?
At Paul_Denizio on Twitter. You can find me on Call to Action every week. Chilled Action, which is our show on tomorrow. Chilled Action at a special earlier edition time. Usually we start around 11:15. Tomorrow we're going to start at 10:30. And we have, there it is, welcoming the queen herself, Shannon Barney, rescheduled with us finally. I'm so excited to have her back on. She was only on our show once on Chilled Action, but only kind of as a partner in crime to Mike Kalinowski, and that was really before she even was really in the league. She just kind of stuck her toe in and made a few appearances on TV before she really fully became the queen character that we know now. So I'm really interested to see where she is as far as in Chilled Action goes now. Also, you can find me on Action Industries, of course, with Ben and Drew and PLD Projects. I will also promote, we have a couple of shows coming up this week on the channel. We have a new show on Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific time, February 1st. I don't know. I know Megs is going to be in charge of it, called the After Action Report. I'm not sure who our panel is going to be. There's a couple of different potentials here. I think Danielle is going to be on. I believe Alex is going to be on. I'm not sure. Maybe Nat. We'll let you know as soon as we know more. But it's going to be a big stats-driven type show. A lot of talk about how the draft was affected, or how some breaking down of the draft a little bit by numbers. It's going to be a great show, I think, because Megs is a great statistician. I would take her against Frank the Slug any day of the week, because we back her on. And finally, of course, we'll be back on Call to Action Live next week. We have guest Paige and Frankie Alvarez. So that's good. Good for us. Kelsey, how about you?
All right, you can find me at KelseyKins90 on Twitter and Instagram. You can find me at Miss Quinkins on Instagram. That's my cosplay page. Eventually, you will find me on Twitch doing things. I decided to take a nap instead today, but maybe next weekend. We'll see. And then, of course, you always find me on Call to Action. I'm here. I'm around, so I'll see you guys when I'm on.
Sweet. All right. Thank you again so much, everybody, for hanging out with us. As always, we salute you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.